their things, right? People are comfortable when no one is right there, because then they're immediately held accountable to what they say. Do you have an intro?
Yeah. No, it's on now. Ladies and gentlemen, Chad Chad Johnson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to I don't know, the couple talks I've had. I'm a gaming videos, and that just starts out with an intro.
Yeah, I went on that page and I'm like, this isn't his podcast.
Oh, it's a
thing.
I have some streams I do, and then there's mostly.
Here.
I mean, the description's right there on the page. It's a game my kids watch my stuff, so it's going to be that kind of appropriate. But I do go into deeper topics, like in the heart and mind stuff, which we have a meeting for tomorrow.
I listened to one of those. It had Sean Dugan in the background talking.
Which one did you listen to? You remember?
I don't know. It had coffee, and there was like a heart in the foam and stuff like that.
Oh, they had the heart and mind coffee talks, and I get.
Or they all have the same picture.
Yeah, they do. There's two of them that have video. One was East of Eden. What was it? Myth and Common Story, something like that. So I talked about everything from the religious progress from East of Eden and how Christ deals with that.
It was like the hero story.
Oh, the hero story.
Talking about.
That was Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung.
Carl Jung.
Yeah, Carl Jung's pretty awesome as far as his thought process goes. But the concept is you get people here to think in real time. Not you think your response up, you type it out, then you just put it online and be like, yo, I hope people are nice to me and click the like button. You held account. You represent character. That's a whole concept of virtue. You can say what good or noble or prideful or faithful or anything is, but unless you have that personified in a single point in time, and it's just a giant abstract word, like who cares? Like people's characters. Pretty awesome.
That's kind of how my brain works, because I can't focus. And when you have like your thoughts are just flying around, there's no hierarchy. Like there's no one thought that's like, this is what you're supposed to focus on, and then all this other stuff is.
Well, I tried that, the East of Eden. I tried because I've been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson. He's not.
Me too. That's why I use that word hierarchy.
Yeah, hierarchy means
the things he says get stuck in my head.
I recommend reading his books. I'm going to go see him in February 22nd. He's going to be at the Mets in Philly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because why not?
What are the did you look at tickets?
From what I understand, they went on sale at 10. I just happened to have that day off of work. By 10:15, like 70% of them were sold out. So, there was a line. You can go online for Ticketmaster, and you literally stand in line. So like I'm online, in line, while I'm at Ticketmaster, which is just kind of funny.
Did you get one?
I got two. One for my friend Preston and I. But that's the thing. You want to see the craving of it in real time. Sure, you can watch a whole bunch of podcasts, but watching somebody being held accountable for their words in person is a totally different. It's like something we've lost.
You got to back it up. You can't just sit there and spit out a bunch of nonsense. And if you actually believe what you're thinking, you'll be able to. A lot of people just talk. They say things.
So that's the whole point of like Heart and Mind Coffee Talks is get people together. Originally, it was we talk about whatever's going on in the culture and what to do about it, because even my 5-year-old can point out problems. Daddy, I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
Daddy, I stubbed my toe.
Well, what do you, that's the whole. That's the whole problem with punk rock. They know what they're against, but there's no like standard like maybe we could try that. There's no solution.
Well, that's Bad Religion.
Nihilism.
Bad Religion has been one of my favorite bands. It still is, because they are very good at pointing out the problems and the outworkings of the flaws of everything. But the thing is, there's bad and then there's worse. And it's like evil and then tragedy. But rather, tragedy is a lot better than evil, because we do evil to ourselves. So you pick the better of two options. So even though they're both terrible, like say Hitler and Stalin. So Hitler, yes, 9 million Jews. Stalin and Mao, if you want to add the whole Marxist philosophy, 90 million people. So that's another zero on the end of that number. Which one's worse? Well, obviously both are terrible.
Yeah, but we kind of just like don't care about that one. It's like no one knows about it.
The reason I think that is because that is communism or socialism gone to communism. Whenever you get rid of God, you have to have hierarchy, right? You have to have something at the top. So that's why a leader's picture will end up on your wall instead of puppies or Jesus or whatever you want to have up there, because you'll be eventually worshiping your leader. He has utopia. If you don't listen to the utopianist, well, we have to kill you. because you don't want utopia, obviously, and that's like the exact opposite of what you want.
Yeah, I don't. It's like people think they can come up with some kind of system or philosophy where everything's going to work out,
Well, the
and
reason,
it's like that's not reality.
yeah, well, one person that's well the Christian concept of heaven. It's always heaven's more of an aim than it is a place. You never arrive there because it's once you put it on Earth and you draw a box around it and say everything outside of this is no longer utopia. Well, that's how you get millions of people killed because they don't believe in that box that you are in. And people across halfway across the world are a definite different thought process than we are today. Studying the ancient like creation stories are a big thing too, specifically in like China and Japan and India, because they don't
Yeah, I
they
was gonna say about Asian countries like tend to view things completely different,
yeah,
like the way they're raised.
and the honor shame culture. But the reason I like punk rock so much and like Bad Religion, Tool, and Nine Inch Nails, which I bring all three of them up in that myth and common story talk, is they operate like Nietzsche does. Well, first off, music is pretty awesome in the sense that you it makes words more serious. Something about the musicians that make them more serious, but at the same time not taken seriously because you don't hear about all the musicians being killed by King Henry. You know what I mean? Like it's like the jesters and musicians. Entertainment's allowed to stick around, but at the same time, they will call to the people's hearts, make them sing. And the reason why they're Bad Religion specifically, because their symbol's the crossbuster. Literally, like we don't need Christ; we can just save ourselves. He is I forget which university he lectures in, but he's a professor in zoology. I think is his degree, and he's into anarchy evolution, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. But what he does is the same thing that Nietzsche said: is you philosophize with a hammer. You look for something you can't destroy. So, like for example, like enlightenment. So, enlightenment is the outworking of looking at the karmic cycle of life. You will die, come back as an ant. You're no longer you, but you'll still be alive. How does that make sense? Who knows? But that's but that's the enlightenment. And then the enlightenment is Buddha saying, "I want out of this because this is terrible." And so Nietzsche destroyed it in two words. The first one was um, to I say it. He said, if to assume that you cannot find truth. Sorry, I forget the first part, but the second part was to assume. Now I'm gonna just butcher the words. To assume that you need to be enlightened assumes that there's a veil of illusion around truth, and you can't find it. And enlightenment is an excuse for inaction. I'm gonna sit in my house and pray. Well, you're not doing anything.
Well, and another thing is like, well, first of all, for reincarnation, what you are is not to me. I don't believe it's like a spirit. I believe you is a bunch of thoughts you've woven together since you were born, and that's like almost the opposite of that. Like you've developed all this craziness, and that's what you. When you say I, You're not talking about like your hand or your foot. You're
Yeah.
talking about this ball of thoughts you've developed, like a rabbit hole you've gone through since birth. So enlightenment is like not being you.
Well,
That's
it's
how I
opting.
see
Well,
it.
you're right. It's opting out. Reading Trent Reznor's. Well, it wasn't his book, but it was written about it. About the crap. I can't remember the name of it. It has him doing this on the cover of it.
Probably.
It was about the downward spiral, but eventually, after like page 200, he
Love
goes.
that album, by the
He
way.
yeah, it's pretty depressing, but it's the outworking of being in the material. Because I hurt myself today. You know, he's all focusing on the pain, the only thing that's real. And that's sort of true in a sense if there's no hierarchy, if you don't go up. It's either you spiral in or you spiral out. And that's like the definitive line is in Eden. And if pain is the only thing you can feel, you can either control it or you can opt out of it. And that's the karmic cycle of life. And every single depiction of hell that you have east of Eden, specifically in like India, when you go into like Jainism or any kind of ism over there that does the karmic cycle, every picture they have of hell, there are people there, but not a single one's identified. They're just people suffering. People. They're not a specific person. When you go west of Eden, there's always exceptions to these, but for the most part, it's called like Occidental mythology. People are in heaven or in hell, but they are them. This is Dante's Inferno has the same kind of thing. They're identified based on their sin. Dante's Inferno is roughly kind of a weird example of that. But they're still in heaven or hell. They're still identified with themselves. And you and I, because we communicate the same way that we are more of a story than we are anything else. And we get to personify virtue. I'm honing in on virtue because the next thing I'm doing is I think January 22nd, besides tomorrow, talking about the image of leadership, like what that looks like, and how you bounce authenticity off of it. Tomorrow we're going to talk about resolutions.
Yeah, so what is, first of all, I don't know where the hive is.
Oh, it's in
So
Dover.
without a license, it's in Dover.
Yeah, it's like you know where Hakes is, or we used to be rather. It's Dottie's now. It's
That coffee place right
It's
next to there. Okay. Yeah,
We'll be there tomorrow from like 8 to 10.
because Sean had mentioned something about that, and I'm like,
Can I invite him?
I'm
I forgot to send him a text. Like, yo,
I'm one of those people, like, I'll do anything if it makes me think, but I could never get out there. I'm like, I'm not waking up at that time.
well,
But I don't have a license, so it's a little weird
oh, that's
for
a
me.
cop out. No, maybe not.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the
What time?
oh, it's from like 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Okay.
It's like they open.
I get up at 5 a.m. for work.
Oh,
You know what I
can do
mean?
it? Easy.
I'm just lazy on my days off.
What's yeah, I guess there's nothing wrong
They
with
let
that.
you sit in there for long periods of time.
I was in there for 3 or 4 hours at one point.
Oh yeah.
So I had like 3 individual meetings, and they all went over an hour each.
How much coffee did you drink?
That's a good question.
You're sitting here like this, guys.
No, it was only like 2 cups, but I had an extra shot of espresso, at least in the one. Coffee only does so much. You hit a point, you're like, I need water. Your body will be like, yo,
Yeah.
your hands are shaking, man. Come on. You're sweating and not doing anything. You need to
That's
hydrate.
the problem.
Yeah.
Caffeine's that one thing. It's like you have to do something. I typically only drink it at work, or I'll have a little bit of coffee on my day off. They didn't have coffee, and I bought this.
What is it?
This guy?
It's called
Rain. It's like 300 milligrams of caffeine. It's basically
Okay.
like 2 Monster Energy drinks in one. So
Rain.
I'm gonna regret that.
Oh yeah, maybe.
It's like there's the Bang energy drinks, and Rain is the Monster brand. It's like their way of competing with Bang.
And they're from what I understand with Bang, it's like lower sugar, lower vitamin.
Yeah,
higher caffeine,
like zero
right?
sugar. Yeah, and higher caffeine, basically.
And we need more of that. Monster. It's all just it's like a cream saver with a bunch of caffeine added to it. Like so much sugar in those things.
Yeah, the ones with sugar.
That's actually
You're educated in the way sugar is and how bad it is. Like I talk to people, and they're like, I can't lose weight, and they're drinking like a Coca-Cola. I'm like, first of all, there's more sugar in that one drink than you should have consume in an entire day.
or even a
And
week.
second of all, to lose weight, all you have to do is change your diet. Like
Yeah.
you're doing cardio. Why? Do cardio later, depending how big you are.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you might actually.
I think if people are educated, they realize how easy it
To your
is.
point, if they're obese, they might and they try to run, they might actually
You're
like
gonna
shatter
get
their bones.
you're gonna get dizzy, and your hearts might get palpitations. And if you switch to meat and vegetables within a couple weeks, you'll be able to do it.
Well, that's actually one of my resolutions. I'm going to aim for.
Me too, actually, because I used to do it. I did it for like 2 years or like a year. Basically no carbs except rice, and I felt great. And then I ate it. I found my parents had a box of cereal, Frosted Flakes, and
Oh,
there was
no.
like 5 of them. And I'm like, they're not gonna notice.
I
I ate it, and then ever since, and that was a little while ago. I've not been able to get off the sugar.
It is more addictive than heroin.
Yeah,
It's
it don't fuck you up, so nobody notices.
Oh, it does
how
later.
addicting
Oh my
it is.
gosh, diabetes.
Well, I mean buzz wise, but yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it'll give you type 2 diabetes.
I
Is
forget.
it? Yeah.
I do know there was a study. It was in Austria, maybe it was in Canada. I forget. But they went on a 100% meat diet, and in with like 2 or 3 months, 90% of them that were diabetic were no longer diabetic, and their disease count went like way down because they stopped eating sugar. Like we need to eat, but turns out if you eat the right things, it's really
I
good
don't
for
know if we didn't know in the 90s or if they were just trying to sell
you. 90s.
food because
Oh,
sugar is cheap. Like no one thought about in the 90s it was like low fat. And,
Oh,
and
yeah,
they
fat,
didn't
like, fat's the
realize like
worst.
the sugar's the problem, not the fat.
well, the farmers came up with the the food pyramid, right? That wasn't done by science.
And
Farmers was like, here's what you
they
should
were
eat.
in cahoots with the government, and they put that in the school books, or they didn't know. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm. That's what I'm. Is
it's
it a conspiracy?
well, it's malice or ignorance. Usually, it's one of those two. If they didn't know, if they should have done the research, this is one of my biggest things against like vaccines. If they don't know, or they don't care to know, that's called willful blindness. That's the downfall of our entire race. We just, I'd rather just not pay attention. It's also down. It's also why they crucified Christ. We just, we'd rather not listen to what you'd say. We just want our power. Willful blindness, or they're doing it intentionally. They just want to make money. Who cares about the little
Yeah,
person?
and it might have been a little of both. Because
Yeah,
I don't think people, even now, like you say, like the 100% meat diet. I've heard of that. It just sounds like you're. It sounds like you're not like you're gonna lose
it sounds unhealthy, doesn't
vitamins. Yeah, yeah.
it?
It's like, don't we need
So
the?
I need to look more into this. This is one of the things I'm going to try to do. I'm also growing a beard for the first time in my life.
That's your New Year's resolution.
This is more of a Christmas present to my wife, and I've never gone more than 2 days without shaving. I think this is like four. So
I
it's
do in
pretty
the
cool.
summertime. I'm clean shaven. In the winter, it's cozy to have a beard. I don't have hair.
I wouldn't know. I mean, God, man.
Oh, okay.
It's my temporary
Well, you
hair.
got no excuse then.
My daughters rip off my hat. Be like, I took your hair, Dad. Oh, thanks, honey.
I
Appreciate
hate that. I gotta have the hat, and if I have to take it off in like public where I don't know the people, I'm like, damn. Now this either I have if I
No,
have my head
no.
shaven, but if not, I got the George Costanza going on,
Okay, sure.
and I don't like
Mine's
people
real low
seeing
too.
that.
Yeah, it's good to be well kept. It took me a minute to figure that out, but that's all right. Hair's hair.
Yeah, but it's weird. I'm at a point in my life where there's like two of me, and the one's like knows. It's like you gotta shape up, find something that means something to you, focus on it, grind, do what you know is gonna pay off in the future. And the other part of me is like, I want to crush a 12 pack of beer. You know what I mean?
That's your war against the flesh, my friend. So it goes even beyond that because you can hit your goals here, but then you'll be left wanting. You have to have an aim that goes beyond your life. Does that make sense? You have
Well,
to.
like instead of just wanting to stop something, you have to want to do something else.
Well, the nature of life continues on beyond death itself. This is the whole. I don't know where you are in your spiritual journey. Are you spiritual? Do you believe in
No,
Christ? Do you believe
no.
in
But
Buddha?
I because of Jordan Peterson, I actually picked the Bible up and started reading it and
Good for you, man.
viewing it the way he views it. Because I don't know what you think. I was always taught to take it literal as
That's
a
a
kid,
bad way to take it.
and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is just fucking ridiculous. And then when I started reading it like as if it was mythology and wisdom, like he talks about it, I'm like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well,
just
well,
packed with wisdom.
they're both true. That's the thing. Regardless of like the before Genesis chapter 11, we have no historical archaeological account. But after Genesis 11, basically everything we have discovered approves the Bible, and the Bible is 66 books with 40 authors. So it's not just the Bible; it's all of those books that it's going toward, except for like Genesis 11 on back, because that's like pre-flood time. But the flood's kind of interesting because every culture has a flood story, but it's like at a different time period, and even the stuff around them it looks like a different time period too. So it's not like it doesn't really matter because there's still the whole concept of the flood. If you listen to a lot of his lectures, he talks about it being something like a tragedy you're going to experience in your life eventually. You know you're going to, even if it is your own death. Are you getting ready for that? And getting ready for that means you have to live for something beyond it, because otherwise your life just stops there, whether you know the flood's going or not.
That's another thing I've been thinking about a lot. Like when you're on when you're on your deathbed, it's like, what are you gonna? First of all, like what kind of emotional tools are you, whatever, are you gonna have at that point to deal with it? Another thing is like looking back, like what will you wish you have done? What will you have wished you did?
Well, this is the story analogy too, right? The light flashing before your eyes.
Yeah.
You literally get to reread your life real quick.
Like
Am
I
I
wish
okay to
I
die
would have
now?
I wish I would have put all these fun things off maybe to
Yeah.
take care of this person or to better get along with my family or stuff like that. Like, right now it's like,
It's relational.
what's that gonna do for me?
It's relational. It's like I can't. Thank goodness. I actually should have worked some more overtime. I would have really had a fulfilled life. No, no one says that.
I say that at work. I say that same thing at work because you know how it is right now. We're being
Where you
worked to
working at?
death. Graham Packaging.
Oh, okay.
And it's like I say that. I'm like, man, on my deathbed, am I gonna be like, man, I wish I would have eaten up all that overtime 30 years ago?
Well, it depends. If your goal is here to get material wealth and enjoy it here, well, there's your treasure. But if it's you can spend your time doing other things that are productive that don't involve money. Money is a crucial factor. I mean, this is extremely biblical word in First Timothy, where he says you have to take as you raise up, you should be able to take care of your house and your family first. If you can't take care of that, like your house in order, right? That's Jordan Peterson thing.
Yeah.
You can't take care of that. How are you gonna fix the world?
He keeps telling me to clean my room, and
Yeah.
I look at my room, and I'm like, oh man, it is not clean.
You have to. And every one of these things is a fight that you see on your way into your house every day. And I have to start with myself. Just because I have kids in the way doesn't mean I can't fight these battles. They can actually help me. You know, pick up the trash, clean up your room. Then you start teaching other people the same thing. That's why I like martial arts so much, because it's practical and it should go beyond you.
Oh yeah, what do you do? Like what form? What style?
I'm a 4th degree in Ishinryu karate. It's I also have belts in judo and American Kempo and Shotokan. But that specific, and I'm also certified as a kickboxing instructor.
Damn.
My dojo is I'm still putting it together using the wood that my company throws out to panel the inside. I just put some insulation up, and I want to get it because Sean was taking it with me for a bit, and I was very impressed with his progress because he's like, wow, I had no idea what I was doing before, but now he's like, it's amazing. I'm like, yeah, turns out if you know what you're doing, with very little practice, an adult male can cave in another one's face. Like I tell you, as long as you're accurate and use the right muscle groups and practice.
Oh, you mean he was trying to some karate out?
Yeah, he for about 3 months, and he got to do it. And I'm gonna invite you to it too, because why not?
Yeah, like I said, I.
So what's holding you? What's the barrier with your license? Like what's going on with that?
February, I get it back.
Oh,
it's been a year because like it's a dumb
story.
Yeah,
when? You don't have to recount it now. But what? So in January 31st, our new work schedule goes into play for myself, where we work 5 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So I'm going to try to work into like an after-school program. I have no idea. I'm still thinking and praying about this. But we're going to do martial arts at least 2 to 3 times a week after that. So you work weekends?
I've got one of those weird 12-hour, like 2 days on, you know what I mean? It switches from week to week, like my days that I have off. Like I have off today.
We'll have I'll just give you both, and then it's gonna be either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday, and then Saturday maybe. So then you can just make it whenever. It'd be nice if you could join us.
You say you're setting up the dojo. Are you gonna like make money with it? Like have classes and
so
you do construction or something? You said or like wood paneling.
Well, yeah, I'm building so it didn't have insulation. It was the barn with a bunch of holes that sat stagnant, basically unused on my property for 10 years. So I finally cleaned it out, and it was fine for the summertime because you can sweat, but if you work out in the cold, people are going to get sick. That's not a good thing. So I put some insulation up there, and it just kind of stopped in January. Holidays get busy, specifically with family. So I just need to put the wood paneling back up. We got some insulation in there. I even have an air conditioning unit that was donated to me. As far as payment goes, your first month, you buy your own uniform. Second month, you buy your own sparring gear. And then after that, you donate whatever you can. I'm not really interested in money as much as I am authenticity and seeing you being a better version of yourself. And I'm serious about that.
Yeah, because it's not about, like, yeah, it is. Like, I took karate when I was a kid just because I wanted to, like, be able to beat people up. Which is, like, the wrong way. I was a kid, though. But also the thing about that, because I used to exercise and lift weights and stuff, you know, like anything else, it didn't last. But it's not even about that. It's like it teaches you stuff. Because when you exercise, you get 100% accurate effort equals return, and you get to see that and how. And then you're like, oh, is that how life works? Like, not exactly, but
it's pretty.
It's not 100% like just like exercise is. Yeah, you're right.
But you invest in yourself. It's literally investing in yourself. So you spend that time doing physical stuff, and I listen to podcasts and everything else when I'm working. working out. So you invest that time in yourself, and you literally get to be the results of your work. And the same thing happens when you read a lot too. I like to read a lot, and I should write down my thoughts more. Um,
No, I that's how I started this podcast. I was gonna make a journal because I had so many thoughts,
yeah, man.
and I'm trying to write, and my brain's racing faster than my hand.
Oh, that'll always
So I
happen.
pushed record and just said a bunch of nonsense, and I had well, some of them I had said something that related to my friends, and I'm like, you got to hear this, and I'd send them an MP3 and a zip file, and they're like, I don't know, and I'm like, oh, I bet if I put it on YouTube, then they can
They just click
listen to it
one
if they
click.
want, or, and then I started having guests on, and I was like, oh, this is cool. It's almost like a real podcast. I need to get like microphones and stuff. My sound quality sucks.
Oh,
But
okay. I mean, I think I have like a
I don't know how to do
$40
all
Yeti
that.
or something. It's not that tough.
Because like I would have to record it through a different program, right? Like
No.
Audacity or something.
Well, I got Streamlabs. That's free, and you can edit that, and you can put the little. That's how I do my video
Or I
screen
just
capture
put this
stuff.
MP4 into another program and I can edit the sound
You can
and
do that
stuff like
too.
that. The
Yeah,
sound's bad. I need to, that's what I
it's not the
want.
program. It's your microphone. You just need to get a better microphone, and then you need there is also the program. Sorry, it's not just the program, but the microphone quality. This little Logitech thing you have here, it's okay. It does what it should
I'm
do.
using the microphone in the laptop.
Oh, the laptop microphone.
Yeah.
This one up here might actually be better.
There's
A microphone
in
in
the
there.
camera thing?
Yeah, the camera actually has a microphone. Try it. Like record yourself singing or yodeling or something. And
Maybe
both.
it is using that.
Maybe it is.
I don't know. I don't know how. Like,
I don't know. We can take a look at it later, maybe.
well, that's the. I wanted to start getting a better setup, and like I said that the last guy, I was like, this is the last one, and then I'm gonna get a better setup. But I keep having people on as long as.
Yeah, why not?
All right, I'm making excuses. I just didn't put any time into it. But yeah,
But that's a reason to work overtime if you need extra money for a mic.
that is the reason. Like, say you're buying a new. Oh, don't get me on the car thing.
Car. What?
Buying a new car. I don't know what car you have, but when you buy like a $30,000 car, like you're making your life so stressful. And people at work have these nice. I walk out in the parking lot. I'm like, you guys have the same job as me. Like, do you hate
I
yourself?
want two
Like,
mortgage payments.
yeah, talk about me not
Do you
having to
hate
work
yourself?
overtime.
Wow. You say you hate your job and you buy that car and that makes you work more.
Yeah, that's exactly
Well
what I'm
done.
trying to say.
Well done.
But every time I say that, I'm talking to someone with a $30,000 car, and then after I'm done talking, I'm like, oh, sorry.
No,
man.
my So we have it's an $8,000 2012, I forget, Honda. Crap, it's an SUV. It's for kids, and I actually didn't renew my inspection on my car because I live so close to my job. I actually ride my electric bike there and back, and I just did it when it was like snowy and icy out. It was very scary. I fell, but and the thing goes 25 miles an hour, and you don't have to get a license for it. So if you're fully padded, it's fine. Summertime it's kind of rough because you have fewer clothing, and if you fall, man, it's gonna suck. Not like I fall all the time. I'm just saying that it's a little bit dangerous, but at the same time, it's efficient because I live close to my job and
Does what it needs to do.
spend like $0 on it. You should be smart with what you have and good stewards of your work.
That's what I say. Like, my house is got enough room, and it's fairly sizable, but fairly what's the word? Not I don't remember the word, but it's like my mortgage payment's very low.
Okay.
And I don't have a car payment because I bought a $6,000 car, and so I paid it off. And that's the main issue with finances. Those two things.
Yeah, that's
You
good.
like get those two things real low.
Debt is a weight on your shoulders because it's always there. Like it's not like, oh, I can forget about mortgage for a while. Well, then you're thinking about it 2 times.
And
as
it's
much.
one of those things in the back of your head. Like sometimes I get real irritable real quick, and I think there's just so much stuff I shoved in the back of my head that I'm supposed to be doing. I don't even know what it is. It's like subconscious almost at this point. What's up, bud? My cat's getting fat.
Oh man, that's a talker. Well, that's true in a lot of sense. There's a lot of things that we should be doing. That's as far as I'm concerned, evidence of the fallen nature of man. Everybody knows there's something they should be doing better or should have done better, and that kind of appeals to there should be a better version of yourself out there, and you can't really do it yourself. Benjamin Franklin tried this for 5 years of his life. He kept a chart, um, and he's like, I'm going to try to be moral without the Bible. And so he wrote down 13 virtues like penance, humility, and he would work on a week on one, and he'd get it down one entire week without committing this sin or violating this virtue. Move on to the next one. The second he'd do that, he'd immediately violate the first.
Okay, yeah. After, so I was gonna
ask. After 5 years of this, he's like, yeah, it turns out it's harder to be moral than you think it is. It's like, wow, man. You just crack open the Bible and the New Testament, and Christ will help you out with that.
Well, you got to think like we could all be pretty good people if it was easy.
Yeah.
And it's really not. Hard. It's easy to be the opposite way.
But everybody thinks they're good.
Reckless and nihilistic and stuff. Well, I mean, it depends on your personality. But for me, the way my personality is, my default is like reckless and almost out of control and stuff like that. And so I have to calm down. Like I'll get real excited and manicky. I don't have to work tomorrow, and I just have to calm down. It's like, dude, just relax for your evening. Try to do normal people stuff. Watch a movie, whatever.
But do you have any roommates?
There's a part of me that just wants to let loose, and that part wins a lot.
That's your word.
If for other people, it might be something else.
You have any roommates here?
No, just me.
Okay, well, that having a roommate will help you keep yourself accountable a little bit.
I can't stand roommates. I flip out on them.
I can understand, and maybe that's a bad thing. But you need
woman.
Maybe you need the right. Yeah. Maybe you need the right roommate, right?
This girl at work keeps telling me I need a woman, and I'm like, I go like this. She's like, what's that mean? I'm like, there's not enough time in the world to deal with that again.
Oh, there.
So
well,
that's another.
That actually ties in with the, not getting up early enough. We make time for what's important to us. If that's important to you and you think it would be, I think it's very much important.
Yeah, and it's probably just my bad experiences. I'm like, I'm not trying
to
handle that again. I don't know if it's, I think because it's been so long that I've been this way, I enjoy being alone, and I don't know if it's healthy or not. It's like the way I enjoy living. But is it because that's how I like to be, or because I've gone down the rabbit hole of being that way so long that I don't want to ruin what I built? I've built a good life ever since I've been alone. It's almost like I don't want to ruin that.
Well, there's certain security in only being responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
Because you know yourself a little bit better than, well, sometimes. If you get in a good relationship, someone else will know you better than you do.
Yeah.
Like my wife, so I have issues sleeping, maybe 4.5 hours a night. And so that I can do this and I can do it for a long time, but if it's like 6 or 7 consecutive days and I haven't slept longer than 4 hours, my wife will just look at me and be like, go lay down. You need a nap. And I'll be like, what? Oh, yeah, I haven't snapping at the kids, haven't I? All right, honey. She'll give me like a couple hours to lay down. Like, that's awesome. She knows me better than she catches that in me faster than I can catch it myself, because I would need time to sit back and think about how I was just treating everybody. She's seeing it happen in real time, and she's helping me with this. So there is a way that sometimes having that kind of relationship, but then that's tough too.
That's not but that can't be the actual reason. It's helpful to be in that situation, but you can't use that as a reason.
Well, you sort of can. It's a perk. So so this is more pragmatism, right? How does life continue? Life continues when a man and a woman get together. They have a relationship, and this is the whole Hebrew word of intercourse is to know. Adam knew his wife Eve, and then she conceived. And to know somebody on that level is quite interesting. And the thing about death also is it means you have to participate with another individual for life itself to continue, or consciousness itself to still exist. Because without consciousness, it's hard to tell if anything would really be anything. Because what's distance if everything's going to come back together or expand too much? What's time? Like, who cares? What's depth? What is all this stuff unless it's experienced by somebody? Now, I would argue that's kind of a leap
that's like a long conversation.
Yeah, that's a leap to consciousness Knowing things. This is one of the arguments for God. Knowing things even though you're not there or you are there, because there's a and you can also look at it as language. Right. This is a long topic. This is like a multi-point conversation. Christ uses the
A lot of the stuff you're talking about is like a big, you could pick
yeah.
one of these things and go on for
Sure.
hours.
Oh,
But yeah,
it's
that's
language. So Christ. So when they in the book of John, he says the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's logos. So when God uses a way to describe Himself, He uses language. And in the beginning in Genesis, I think this describes us pretty well. Even in our own minds of the relationship, you have reality itself, which is the Spirit hovering over the waters, and then you have God saying, "Let there be," and extracting out meaning and infinite from infinite potential. And that line in between the two, you can even see this in the yin yang. The line is the communication, how one calls to the other, and we get to embody this between male and female. We're more alike than we are different, but the differences are substantial. They're usually 60% of men are more sort of conflicting. 60% of women are more agreeable than men. You put it that way. So that that's because they're more relational. Usually, women are better with people, and men are better with things. And this makes sense in the Genesis account because Adam was there. There's a bunch of stuff and animals. Eve shows up, and there's always people. There's always someone to talk to. So that makes sense. Their origin points are what they're more familiar with.
and they like it's like I think of like men as old beat up cars and women as like Ferraris and shit. They can give birth to a human being, so
It's nuts.
they're more frat. Like you wouldn't punch a woman in the stomach. I don't know why. Like that's kind of dark to say, but the reason is her body can give birth to a human being
Yeah.
and her skeletal structures, notwithstanding. But
Yeah,
but a
there's a
guy,
lot to
it's
that.
like who cares, If you
And
see what I'm trying to say.
yeah, and societies are usually you can see where society goes based on how the feminine is treated by the masculine. Like it's more on us and what we do to the feminine. Like in America, pornography is just extremely rampant to the point of there's no more sacredness in life, and so abortion happens, right? Because the beauty of creation, which is in the female, because there's life and death in there, is just like there's nothing different about her, and so abortion's fine. And are we wondering why there's a confusion between the sexes or attraction? Like it's when you desacralize this kind of stuff, then it can just be whatever you want it to be. Um, Genesis makes the point; it ties the curse into our identity. It's one of the, besides gender, when we fall, the curse is what we have. So men toil because by the sweat of our brow, we'll have to make food because we can see into the future now. And well, by the and female, she's going to desire men's strength, and she's going to have pain in childbirth. Pain binds you. When you start when you start denying the concept of evil and pain, you start denying God. Like there's no right or wrong because there's no evil, and you have to bind things by the negative, and pain will carve you out, especially if it's a little bit at a time, as opposed to the flood at the end. So you learn how to swim, like
You
in
don't notice it really.
well, like in Tools Anemia, learn to swim. That's actually a positive song. The flood's coming. How about you do something? Learn to swim. Fret for your TV, fret for your latte, fret for your lawsuit, fret for your earpiece, fret for your Prozac, fret for your pilot. He's like, stop worrying about this crap. Because he read a lot of Joseph Campbell too. I mean,
Joseph Campbell.
Joseph Campbell, Carl Jung. I read it's a
I
perfect.
don't know much about. I know Carl Jung,
That's all right.
but
It's
well,
they're hefty
is he a
reads.
psychologist?
He's I would say more of a historian. He was a
Okay.
historian that ties a lot of the myths. He wrote this book my wife just got me called the Hero with a Thousand Faces, and it ties the commonality of the myth that's in every culture that's existed and what draws this people to that. And it's amazing how much of that rhymes in every single culture and every single myth. The things that pull us to that. And the cultures that suffer are the ones that don't have like a creation story, which is like China specifically. It doesn't really have a creation story. That's why their kings are on par with king and god. I think of their language is interchangeable. So what are
So
you
they
gonna
need an.
do?
They like whether they say it or not. Like require a figure of authority.
Well, everybody does, but So one of their kings in the ancient times, the first king they have a log of, was a moral king that worked himself to death for his people. So that's their commonality of what is a good moral person supposed to do. But they're still king. There's nothing above the king. So if a king decides to, this happened, build a tower of immortality and then see what it's like to push someone off the top, that's his first command. Well, he does, and no one does anything about it because he's the king. He's divine. Why would you do anything about that? That's why you can have kids in Tiananmen Square get mowed down because the government's in charge. There's no nothing that values the individual in their ancient past that supports them going into the future.
They're almost like a means of obtaining something, like how a sociopath would view someone, like the government
Gosh,
viewing somebody.
You want to throw up? Read what they did to the poor Tibetan people. Why they hate Tibet so much is because they won't conform, and they still believe in something past this life. Their whole goal is like searching for immortality here. What's the point of searching for immortality after life? You're dead. Like, it's extremely secular even from the get-go. Before Mao adopted Marxism, and that's one of the terrors that happened down there. Anyway,
the Marxism thing, that's another long conversation. I don't, because people don't understand how it works.
In order for life to continue, regardless of what you think about it or not, nobody's immortal. So you will never have a better relationship with anyone besides if you have kids. Your children will be the people you're closest with, because as long as you have the right idea that life continues. And I had a heart-to-heart with my 10-year-old and said, my goal is to make sure when you're 18, you can walk out these doors and be fine on your own. So I am not critiquing you to be mean. I want you to be better. And when I had that conversation with her, she really softened up. So I tell her to do something, she does it. And then I encourage her. It's been the 5-year-old, we're still working on her. She's a fireball, but she's 5. So give them little things as they can take it. But as far as the pragmatic way of looking at things, we men are meant to be together with women, if anything, just to procreate, and life continues that way. Because what happens is, if and this is Mary being talked
bigotry. I won't have bigotry on my show. I'm messing with you.
Well, this is Mary. Mary, when God comes to her, it's like, you're gonna have a kid, and he's also gonna pierce your heart, because this is I know I'm jumping these two together, but this is also the concept of Sleeping Beauty. They don't invite you remember the Disney version of Sleeping Beauty? Okay, they don't invite Maleficent there because you have a kid. You don't want to invite death into your house. It's a kid. It's beautiful. So the kid grows up spoiled because she doesn't know what terribleness is. She doesn't know what pain is. She leads a terrible life because of this, and can't take any kind of criticism or terrible things in her life. It just literally knocks her out the second one guy she meets falls in love with him. He leaves. She has PTSD and magically finds the only spindle, knocks herself out with it. Good job.
That happened to me.
Oh, okay. What?
Well, not with a guy, but that happened to me because I viewed my parents and I'd seen how their relationship just lasted. And then my sister got married, and then I'm like, so that's what happens. No.
What?
And I got married, and then it ended, and I was like, I could have recovered a lot faster. And it's just like my mind didn't understand, like what you're saying. It was almost like I was naive.
Yeah.
And it shocked me.
Well, it takes work, and your aim, even as a couple, it has to be triune. This is why marriage is traditionally Christian, and God is involved, and it's a 3-way conversation. You, your wife, and God, and that is what you're aiming at. Both of you are aiming at that, and you're lifting up the child. So then you got like a diamond. So you're lifting up the child in this way. And it becomes like a triforce, right? When you have multiple kids, it's even cooler. So you're all aiming for this point. You want life to continue well while you follow the curse that's given to you, so you become what you are supposed to be. But to do that, you have to give up your wants, and you have to fight the flesh and win. Does that make sense? Now, marriage, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have something transcendent guiding you, I don't feel like being with you anymore. See you later. What's stopping me from doing that?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I mean, I was like 22. I probably shouldn't have got married. You know what I mean?
That's all right.
It's kind of like in retrospect, I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? But yeah, it was just like we were playing house, basically.
Okay.
and it was like we didn't operate as a couple. It was just, yeah. Anyway, but
No, this took us year. I mean, we're in our 12th year now, my wife and I, and it takes years, and we get better now because we see this in our kids. We're trying to correct it. I cleaned up my half. Why can't you clean up hers? Honey, you're 10. She's 5. You're gonna be more advanced. That's just how it is. You see a need, I want you to meet it, and so we do this to each other. If I did the dishes every day and made dinner every day, and then suddenly I'm not going to do anything else for her because she should know why. I'm like, what? Is she a reverse mind reader? No. You see, you should work to your potential, and if you need help, you use communication. That's Christ. That's again the abstract. We were talking about virtue in the beginning. Abstract virtue, pulling reality ahead, and communication being in between. It's good to talk to each other, and it gets you better at talking with each other, especially in the negative. Holding those things inside is not usually healthy. Now, you also have to have semi thick skin. Yo, you didn't put the toilet seat down. Do it again. We're getting a divorce. Like that's, you know what I mean. You gotta. There's wisdom in this kind of thing. So yeah, there is potential to make it amazing and make you a better person. But if you live alone, that's okay too.
no, that's fine.
Your aim's getting
That's
better.
fine. But my concern is that it's just that like if there was someone else here, maybe I wouldn't be like chugging beers on a Tuesday. Well, they might be like, Aaron, that's kind of like inappropriate behavior or just weird. You know what I mean? Like you can go crazy, and you don't like cabin fever.
Oh yeah.
Basically, like you got to watch yourself. But yeah, it's whatever you want, however you want to live. But that's my concern is like I'm not gonna be accountable for anything, and I'm just gonna like I kind of been doing that. That's why it's a concern.
Well, you got no battle to fight.
No,
What are you saving yourself for?
I get home and it's like I decompress, but
From
for
what?
the whole night,
From what?
and then I from work
I tell myself this
I
too.
do
Like,
12-hour shifts and I get pretty.
is it
Go
physically?
on, you probably got a point there.
Oh, it's all right. Is it physically demanding?
Physically and mentally,
All right.
it's
Did you
like
almost die? Like, are you fighting back moral demons while you're there?
no.
It's
I
not
gotta watch it. I get real angry.
okay.
That's something I deal
Fighting
with,
your
and that's
temper.
particular. That's more specific to work
Hmm. Well,
than home, and it's almost like maybe
there's always injustices, and we'll see that a lot, especially if again anybody can point out problems, right? But what are you going to do about it? Are you trying to apply to a management position so you can fix things? It's
no, I don't think I would like that.
it's tough. So I think about this too. So it's not this is me talking to myself really. You have to think about this before you put yourself in the cockpit. Put yourself there. What would you do with all this? Would you fight the person dictating the schedules? And would you fight the person dictating? You know what I mean? Would you really do that, or would you try to survive like your boss probably is trying to do too?
It's almost like you got at some point you got to realize they're people. They're just people.
Yeah.
Like when you're like, man, they suck at doing this, or like, how could they make me do that? They don't even know what they're talking about. And as after a while, it's like they might be responsible for stuff you're unaware of, and it's just like they're people.
There's that.
They're just human beings. Like you know what I mean. My job's tough and stressful, and it's mental and physical at the same time, which is like where you get burnt out.
Oh yeah.
But and I'm always thinking my supervisors are terrible at their jobs, and it's like they're human beings, and their job consists of basically getting yelled at all the time from their superiors, and who knows what I don't know what else.
And that's a good place to start. Like I don't know. So this is where you, and I'll bring up Christ because my main focus is apologetics. Do you know what apologetics is?
No,
I
yeah, no. I've
It's
heard
okay.
that
It's
word.
okay.
I've heard the
So
word.
apologetics comes from the Greek word apologia, means to give an answer. So in 1 Peter 3:15 it says, "Set aside Christ as Lord, and always be ready to give an answer for the reason for the hope that is in you." So nothing makes sense pragmatically, spiritually, psychologically, outside of Christ. Because pragmatically, well, wouldn't I just beat you up and take all your stuff? Why not? What's the point? I might get caught. No, I'm pretty good at hiding. You know what I mean? Like you need Christ and God existing makes everything more substantial, including science. And science is always changing. So trusting the science is putting your trust in relativity. So you have to be careful with that one too. So I'm going to try to point to Christ as much as possible. The reason why I say that, I try to draw everything to it. So like Kyle Rittenhouse, right? How do you point that to Christ? Like every single topic should lead to it from the cross, as far as I'm concerned, and it does. Because if you take Jesus out of our world, why should you care about your neighbor at all? Because even Confucius got close, and so did Socrates. Confucius said, "Don't do to your neighbor what you wouldn't want to be done to you." That's an excuse for blindness.
They got close with like a secular philosophy.
Sort of,
Is that what you-
but even then, oh well, what they're saying is that even then they're not rooted in the transcendent; they're rooted here. Um, and in the Muslim faith, he's in one of the sutras. He says it's better to forgive, and this is my words, but you don't have to. It says it's better to, but you don't have to. So there's like an underpinning of unforgiveness in the Muslim faith.
And forgiveness to you would that be like letting go and putting it in the past, or actually telling the person, like to me I use that word as like let it go out of your head and don't hold on to anger towards somebody, just let it go. But for me, if someone did something pissed me off enough, I'm not going to actually like walk up to them and say, you know what I mean, and say I forgive you, to because it it's almost like condoning what they did. And so I use the word forgiveness as letting it go and not being angry at them.
That's a good way of looking at it. It's a good place to start.
Because I'm not going to condone someone's behavior if they do something spiteful to me.
Yeah, you shouldn't. You're enabling them to abuse you. Well, there's a couple parts to this. Forgiveness itself means not holding it over them, and
Yeah,
forgiveness actually takes work. You have to. Sorry, unforgiveness takes work. Forgiveness is easy because you don't have to wear that burden anymore. If I don't forgive somebody, I have to remember to be angry at them every time I see them. And
it's true. Like they'll do something. I can think of a couple people, like they'll do something nice, not maybe not to me, but they'll do something nice, and I'll be like, oh, they're not that, and I'm like, oh man, no, no, we're going hardcore again. No, I'm not forgetting that thing, and I'll feel this almost like withdrawal from not hating them or something like that, and more in the past, like there stuff like that I've been actually dealing with lately.
well, that's something to keep in mind. So psychologically, first off, I would argue you need a transcendent perspective. Like you need God to pull you forward, and this is life itself. Whenever you are resentful over a moment in time, you are stuck there. You will not grow. And so if you're angry at somebody, you stay there. Every time you see them, I'm going to go back to my 13-year-old self again. Or whenever you decide not to be forgiven or not to forgive them. So forgiveness when it comes to the workplace, as far as I'm concerned, um, we use the servant leadership kind of mentality. How can I make their job better? What is my job as a person? And if you think about it, your job is to make your boss look good. How many people do that? Like zero, especially in the industry world, right? You just want to do your minimum requirements, or you want to work for yourself.
I don't want to do that in particular because, from my perspective, I know more than my boss.
Oh, but
You know what I mean?
But are you
And
the boss?
I am practically
Okay.
because I know more.
So knowledge.
So they have to come to me with their questions, whether they're whatever their title is. I view it that way. But then again, like I said before, I don't know what else they're doing.
Well, this
Maybe
is
it's not their responsibility to know the nitty gritty of the mechanics and the quality and stuff. Because they'll come to me and I'll be like, they'll maybe tell me something. I'm like, that's not gonna work. Like you don't really understand. I gotta do this and this and this to do that. It's gonna be ridiculous. I can just do this, and they don't know what I'm talking about. And so, from my perspective, it's like, come on, man, you guys work here, and then, but again, maybe it's not their responsibility. The boss isn't necessarily a mechanic, or and I kind of have a view on that. You should work on the floor and work up to that position, but it's whatever. They went to college, maybe they got that position. That's their job. We're supposed to be on the same team, and so I go like a tennis match back and forth between those.
Yeah. Well, there's the unearned ranking, right? So there's a couple things you said there. One is, should it be the responsibility to know your job? Not specifically, and this I'm going to get into this a little bit in January, talking about the image of leadership. Do you have to have competence to be a leader? Do you have to know everything there is to know about everything to be a leader? Exactly. Like when you take it to its extreme, you're obviously like, well, no one can know everything. So, but you can. This is where you can take it to the political sense, right? President of the United States. Why not go that high? Should he know everything about agriculture, about industry, about marketing, about
No, you should
heck?
let someone else do
What the
that.
heck does Fauci know? What are, making people afraid? Should he know everything? No. What
That's
he
why I
does,
believe in power being distributed to the states and boroughs and
that
local
makes sense because
things.
America's just so huge. It's
It's too
impossible for a
big.
blanket rule to cover everything.
What I need in this area is different than in like Texas or whatever. There's like York, PA. There's lots of jobs. I get fired, I can walk down the street,
Yeah,
get
man.
another job. You throw a rock, you hit 10
And odds are you'll get
manufacturing
one that pays
plants.
more.
I thought when I was younger, I thought that was how everything was.
No,
And I'm like, life's so easy, man. I don't understand how people even struggle. Like, I'm irresponsible, like hooligan, and I'm fine. And I view it that way. And as I learned more, I'm like, this is like an industrial hub, this area.
yeah, we are
And
very
so, yeah,
lucky.
for me, it's easy to go out there and get a job with no education and make decent money and pay my mortgage.
Yeah,
There's other
easy.
people with, like inner cities, there's more people than jobs. And so I start thinking about that stuff. And you almost have to abandon your political views to understand that stuff
Yeah,
because you're going to block your brain.
you'll be
It,
stuck here when you're thinking about over there. Well, it's obviously fine here. Why isn't it fine over there? You're like, then you're
or just go right back to the, well, if they don't get a job, they shouldn't have money and
yeah,
they got to fend for themselves. I don't care, man.
that's blanket
It's not
rules.
like that's how I always viewed it. And then when you start saying like, oh, in the inner city, like there's more people than jobs, now you have to bend your political views.
Yeah,
You can't. I don't want to go there,
no, it's okay.
but you know what I mean. Like you have to abandon these ideologies,
Yeah,
and that's very hard to do when it
because
becomes your identity.
yeah. Well, you put this is virtue personified. It acts differently depending on the circumstance, depending on who they are, depending on who the other people are. It's extremely personal. We're given amazing wisdom to whatever this story is that we're reading from our own face to be able to put in situations and have other people that are the same way look at us and say that was good or that was bad, and we all would agree on this. My kids appeal to the moral law all the time. I was there first. That's my chair. And they look to me as if I'm supposed to pronounce judgment. It's like it's built into us to see this kind of stuff pending the circumstance. The other thing I wanted to get to with the job thing is that you are very much competent. Do you need competence in order to be a good leader? And the route you can travel there is you can come in, have a crew, even a job you don't know, but you need to build relationship and trust. So I have your best idea. I have your best intentions in mind. You have vacation. I want to make sure you have it. If you don't get paid correctly, I'm going to be on HR like crazy. I'm going to make sure you are taken care of. But what I need from you is I need relationship. Why can't we do this? Can we do this? Well, what if you have a boss that doesn't do that?
I do. Hey, I don't think it's their fault though. Well, now's a weird time, anyways, because of all these people not working.
Oh
And
yeah,
every company's like hurting and falling apart because their skilled workers
yeah,
can just leave and go work somewhere else. Anyone can. So
yeah.
if the job's a little rougher than another one,
I thought
you can't keep it.
giving people money because of COVID, I thought people should just bite the bullet. This is a sickness, and then we move on. Not give a whole bunch of relief funds to
Well, you
everybody. That
wouldn't
was
have
terrible.
needed to do anything with money if you didn't shut anything down. I don't know why they shut things down. That's ridiculous to me.
I don't want to go down that route.
That's
I have an
insanity.
idea why.
But
And it only should have happened pending the states, not the global. But let's back up from COVID. Go back to the leadership
yeah,
thing.
let's get out of there, man. I'm not. We all
so
got our
so
own
you
views.
understand relationship, and if you don't have a boss that treats you that way, then you got to look at it from the other side. Okay, And this is where I would say prayer comes in, because whenever I pray for somebody, specifically those above me, what happens is I change, and I don't even try it. And then I start asking that big question, why? What's the reason behind this kind of belief system, or this kind of way he's treating me? And usually, like, yeah, put myself in their shoes. It might be a lot harder than I think. What do I really know about what's going on? It turns out I don't know a whole lot about what's going on in their life. So if you spend your time making your boss look good, it's amazing what will happen. Now you have to do it smartly, because this is, again, it's amazing how this stuff's all tied together. Go back to the concept of forgiveness versus unforgiveness. You should forgive people, but that is, I would say, divine and past us. We need help with this. But you're smart. If someone punches you in the back of the head, you say I forgive you, you're going to turn your back on them again? Well, probably not. At least not, not anytime soon, because they just punched you in the back of the head. You'd be like, all right, man, how about we don't do that again? You'd back away slowly. You'd be smart about how you're treated. So,
Maybe I don't keep holding it against them, but maybe I don't really talk to them again. Maybe they can just go do their thing,
mm,
and I'm not don't want to get like I don't want to get punched in the head again. So maybe just not talk to them again.
yeah, avoidance.
Not out of spite, but just like
No, out of your
I
own
don't need that.
self-preservation. There's a person in my job is much like this, who was on me. Are you vaccinated? I'm like, no, I'm not. Why don't you have your mask? I'm like, they went at me, and I'm like, I keep my mouth shut, let them say their piece, because that kind of person doesn't want to listen. They just want to talk, especially if it's fueled with anger. If you can't douse the anger in like the first couple of seconds, they just literally have wanted no conversation. They just want to yell their thoughts at you. So be like, all right, maybe approach them a little later. Hey, why'd you yell at me earlier? Is there a reason behind that?
And that's something that really I don't like, and it's because I was like that very much at time. I feel like the things you really can't stand in other people are the things you're like I was like that, and I know where they're at, and that pisses me off. Blah 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 blah. Like in kids, really, if a kid's young and they're doing something, and you did that a lot, I don't know why, but for me, that's what it is. It like makes me mad at them, and it's like only because I understand
Hmm.
you don't get that.
Well, the well, that's
It's
a
kind of hard to
no,
explain.
it's a
I'm
timer
not good
thing.
at like articulating my thoughts all
Well,
the
you're
time.
getting better. This will help, especially in conversation format.
It does. I watch it back, and it helps me It helps me talk to people better, and it also helps me look at myself because I'm like drinking and smoking and all these episodes. I'm like, oh, I do that a lot, don't I? Left to my own. This is another thing about living alone. You don't really notice stuff like that, so you're looking at yourself. That's what this has helped me do. Be like, oh, man, maybe I do this a little excessively. I should probably not. Like, I don't want to. Like, I'll watch it and be like, I don't want people viewing me like that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's what it is. And it's like, yeah, I look like I don't care about nothing, and I'm just joking around, and there's no real point.
Hmm.
And I don't think about it till I started watching these, and I'm like, I don't want people because I'll post it up regardless.
Yeah. Why not?
But then I look at it and I'm like, man, I gotta do something different.
So
I'm
that's your
drinking in
aim.
so many episodes and not without noticing it till I
Hmm.
go back and look.
There's a well, that's we're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow, of when the concept of resolution and where your aim is. Your aim has to be beyond this life. And I can't find any, and this is Nietzsche philosophizing with a hammer. If you identify yourself with anything in this life, in this planet, a concept, whatever, you identify yourself with death, because it will end. If anything, because of entropy, heat death of the universe, it's gone. You identify yourself with your mother. Well, your mom's probably going to pass before you. If you identify yourself with your muscles, well, it turns out your body's going to decay. It's going to go away. So you have to identify, or at least put yourself in something beyond this life, because that's substantial and that is moving beyond you. And that usually etches yourself into like a legacy, or etches yourself in at least something that's more important than your own life. This is it's a shame your marriage didn't work out, but if you have a second chance, or at least have children, this is why that's extremely important. You can etch yourself roughly onto a person, and this is something that I think we lost a while ago, even before the telegraph. Is if even if there is no God, which I strongly believe there is, and lots of evidence for it, how would you etch yourself into eternity if not for on your kids or the people you influence? because you and I may meet and have conversations with 1,000 people in our lifetime, and this is one away from a million, like one extra person. Well, that's 1,000 times 1,000. That's a million, and then there's a billion. My friend's son said something about his vote and person being insignificant, and I don't even know why I said it. I'm like, don't you ever say it again. You are so strong. So, seriously, I'm like, you are so strong and powerful and influential. You have no idea. Your value is immense, and that's divinity given us by God and by Christ. That doesn't come from this planet. That comes beyond us. You have to pull from that the dignity for ourselves.
So you're saying like something that's past this life, like you mean like I could treat this person with a little more respect and maybe show them, say a couple things to them I think's helpful, and maybe they'll relay that to someone else, and it'll keep going. The world will be a little bit better, or at least not shittier.
Okay, at least not worse. There
Is
we
that
go.
kind of what you mean by that? Because I'm thinking like identify with something eternal. I just don't understand
That's
that
okay.
concept. But what I just said, does that work?
It does work to a point, but then again, says who? This is again where you have to look at something like either this is where crap. It takes a while to unpack the concept of nostalgia. Reminiscent of the past actually fuels your future. Why a creation story is very much important for the future. It really is. You need a feeling of good, almost complete, of how things should be, and you want to mirror that as you go on, if anything, for the next generations. So when I say you need to identify yourself with something outside of this life, when God creates man in the Genesis account, and again, doesn't matter if it happened or not, but this is how it's explained. He made us in his image, in the image of God. So what is the image of God? Well, this is what we get in the as far as I can tell, and I'm studying this. I'm reading the Bible for the 5th time, cover to cover. I think I'm just going to stop and read Christ's
Wow,
words.
I don't get through it really very fast.
It's all right.
It's a tough read.
I've been doing it for a while, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life till I turned 30. So it's been 10 years that I've been trying this. So the image of God, as far as I can tell, is when in the. Do you have a Bible?
I do.
Go grab it real quick. I forgot to bring mine. I brought a couple other books. I don't know why. I thought the Bible wouldn't be important.
I got the Satanic Bible too.
I'm gonna order that and read it, but I don't think I need
It's
to.
so stupid.
I
bought it because I was like, dude, they're gonna talk about sacrificing goats on top of pentagrams, and it's gonna be awesome. They don't talk about.
Nope.
They don't talk about anything. It's like a high school kid wrote the book, basically. There's nothing cool in it, and in the sense of like the goat sacrificing, but there's also nothing in it that has substance. It's just kind of ridiculous.
It's shallow. It's all about you.
Yeah, it's shallow.
There's nothing deeper than you. It's all about you. That's why it's shallow. You can read Joel Osteen. I don't know if you know Joel Osteen. No. You get the same kind of. These are very. It doesn't matter. So anyway, the story of creation. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was barren with no form of life. It was under the roaring ocean covered with darkness. But the Spirit of God was moving over the water. God said, I command light to shine, and light started shining. God looked at the light and saw it was good. He separated light from darkness and named the light day and the darkness night. Evening came and then morning, and that was the first day. What version of Bible? Contemporary English version.
I don't know. Like I said before on one of these, the Bible's a classic, and they keep remaking it. Just like my favorite horror films.
That's
like
funny.
They got the King James version. They got the. It's a joke, really. But.
So that's funny. We can get into Bible authenticity too, because that's a big thing for me. We'll pause here on the image of God. When I started, I saw this. When I started my walk, my wife got pregnant. I bought a house and I got a promotion at my job. And the Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on my door, like all in the same year. So the Jehovah's Witnesses say, we believe in Jesus too. I'm like, come on in. And at that time, because that was the last of these things to happen, I'm like, I asked my pastor because I felt like we should go to a church. All this stuff that's happening to me seems bigger than me. Well, let's go to a church. Seems like that's what people do when they have families. So let's try this too. And he said, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. And I'm like, well, do you have any books on the topics I love reading? And he gave me the book called The Watchtower Society by Walter Martin. And it goes into the discovery and the history of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I fell in love with that kind of concept of reality itself. I started reading about all these cults. I got this book called Kingdom of the Cults, like a 1,000-page book. It's basically everything that's derivative from Christianity, including Catholicism, at least to a point, is in there, and where it goes astray. And a big lesson of that is whenever you hear of one person finding the truth, just one, be very skeptical about that. The Bible is 66 books with 40 authors. There's a reason why it's special, and they all point to the same thing, which is Christ. So I really wanted to look and see what was true, and so I'd do that by the negatives, and figuring out that this is the best story that we have and the most historical story we have was revolutionary. And I forget why I was saying this, really, but what I'm going to get at is when reading the Bible, I go for King James for poetic, and when looking into Bible authenticity, we have authentic copies of the Bible from the year 300 AD. So this argument where it's a copy of a copy of a copy, that just doesn't work. It's straight up. It takes like 500 years for something to become a myth. We have authentic pieces of manuscript from, like, I think the earliest is year 120 AD, and we have secular accounts that are even before that. So it's the most authentic thing you could possibly find on the planet that's old in ancient history. And the thing about Christ is there's historical evidence that he did what he did and said what he said. There's myths that mirror this, but then that's the law of the excluded myth. That's saying because Mithras had a virgin birth, Christ had a virgin birth, therefore Christ is a myth. Well, elephants have ears, I have ears, therefore I am an elephant. Same kind of logic. It's bad. It's not good. So the image of God is right. This is, as far as I can tell, this is it. So the earth is barren without form, but the Spirit of God was moving over the waters. That's your infinite ball of potential. That's like calling something out of nothing. And God said, he said, let there be light in most versions. I command light to shine. Same thing. And that's the abstract calling reality itself to be something specific. And this is, you also get this in the masculine and feminine relationship. And men, as far as I'm concerned, are like the walls of a garden, and women are the garden itself. Without one, what's the point of the other? Because the garden, if you have no walls, well, the inside of the garden becomes like the rest of the jungle. If there's no inside garden to be beautiful, make life worth living, reality itself, well, what's the point of the walls? What are they protecting? There's nothing sacred. That's, again, pornography desacralizing the beauty of femininity, which has life and death in it, the infinite potential, the Spirit hovering over the waters. So that relationship between the two is the image of God. And communication is huge. I know there's a long unpacking, but you have to, and this is something when I was managing at Ollie's, when new people come in there, I would tell them, you are made in the image of God, and I want you to be amazing. That's my job. And I didn't, even atheists didn't have a single person that was like everybody brightened up at that fact, like, oh, okay, cool. That sounds pretty neat. Made in the image of God means you're made in from something that's way bigger than you. And you're given dignity that is beyond you. It's given to you, and that's in our Constitution, too. Does that make sense? So if you want to forgive them and you want to say positive things to them, you can do that, but you have to understand their worth and your own. Love your neighbors yourself, right? You have to treat yourself. This is a Jordan Peterson thing. Yeah. Treat yourself as if you are worthy of love. But he's getting all this from the Bible. It's right there.
It's right, because I tend to treat myself like shit.
Yeah.
You know?
So this is your two people, because it sounds like what he's doing, because he'll go the same way Carl Jung does. He says, I accept God exists. He's like a person that stands outside of a church and looks inside and says, it looks really cool when you're inside. But he just stands outside and admires the church. Like he doesn't go fully into it, although he's pretty close.
He also takes a lot from Carl. He's got a couple authors, but he's trying to send a message that he thinks is valuable. But a lot of times he always tells you who he's taking that from. He's not.
Yeah, a lot of it's Christianity itself.
He's biting other philosophers' material, but he admits.
Well, he admits it.
Plus, he wants you to read that stuff.
Well, yeah, that's an authentic life.
I hear people's criticism of him is that he keeps citing the same authors over and over. It's like, well, it's because that's what he views as. Like, you go do what he does. See how many authors you cite. Well, that's what's important to him.
Yeah, the bonuses of, and this is something I watch myself too once in a while. I cut off people, and I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to work on being patient in my conversation. But if somebody writes their entire life for 80 years and writes multiple books, that's a lot to absorb. And that's a lot of information. And that's what reading does for you. It takes another person's life, a lifetime, decades of thoughts, puts it in a couple pages, and you get to put that here and bounce that off of
without
real.
going through your
Yeah.
entire life trying to. I say that about YouTube. Like I listening to like Alan Watts and people that think these things like they thought about this stuff while I was reading comic books or before then and stuff, and like I didn't put all that time into it, but I still get to hear
Yeah.
it.
It's awesome. And like, I didn't invent electricity.
Well, you
This,
get to use it.
this is one of the when people are bitter at their job. So I don't know how you are with your 12 hours is tough, dude. I don't know if I could do that, but
I don't mind it actually.
so I know with family and other responsibilities, it'd be very tough. I'm happy with my 8 hours. Trying not to work overtime because I want to devote more time to my family.
I won't work 12 hours and come home and have a kid screaming at me.
Yeah, well,
I come home and watch a movie and chill.
They wouldn't be screaming at you. They would want your attention because they crave it.
Oh
They
yeah,
need
that's
you
the
more.
thing I say because
It's easy to look at it like that. It
a
really
kid
is.
needs to. A kid won't really misbehave that much if they're given attention. It's like
Yeah, because you're
it's
raising
like
them
the
properly.
weight loss thing. Like I feel like people just don't know that. Or
Well,
you think?
Well, that's a flavor of our culture. It's all about you. Especially when you say you have the Satanic Bible. It's all about you. Why would you have another person?
I was
You'd have to
so
worry about
excited
that.
about that book.
I know. It sounds so cool. The Satanic
It's
Bible.
stupid.
That's funny. I do, and I think my friend Dana just posted his certificate as being inaugurated into the Church of Satan. I'm like, well, all right, good for you, man. I don't know what to say about that one.
Well,
All
like,
right.
there's different types of Satanists or Satanist groups, isn't there? Because that thing was stupid, man.
I
Is there
don't.
one that talks about sacrificing goats I can read?
You want to sacrifice some goats?
I want. It's something cool, man. I thought that book would be like all my favorite horror films
Oh no.
packed together
No.
and with a bunch of weirdness.
You know what book has that all of that in it?
The Bible.
It's right here. Yeah, it's crazy how that
Brutal
works.
murders and
Yeah,
whatnot.
it is absolutely nuts. So that book talks about
Yeah, that's
man.
I said that. I said that. I think it was one of my early ones that was audio. I'm like, dude, the Bible is like the most badass book ever written, man. Even if you don't get anything from it, it's just kicks ass. Man, they're just like murdering people, and
I don't know if that's a good thing.
the Bible kicks fucking ass. I don't think I've ever heard someone put it that way.
I certainly have.
I
not,
just
at least
said that for a
my
fact.
circles.
I just said that for a
Yo,
fact.
one of my idols is in there. I forget what it is, but he's like I'm 80 years old and I still fight and I'm still good for battle with a sword. He still fights in the army at 80 years old.
Like literally.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, cool. I want to do that. That sounds awesome. The 80-year-old guy that like even the 20-year-olds are like, don't mess with him. He'll get you.
When I'm 80, I want to be like the dude on Gran Torino, like just sitting on his porch, like, like.
Do you really want to
What
be
is-
like that?
It's like the only image of like a cool old person I can come
Okay.
up with.
Okay. I guess
I don't know if I do or not, but
one day for me, martial arts helps with that because like our what is it? Yoshi Uichi Sensei, I think he's a seventh or eighth Dan. I think he's 70 and he can still do like a full split. Like he is in great shape. So to me, that's a disciplined person because as you age, especially in this country where temptation for putting stuff in your mouth is just everywhere. Or go get free samples. Pop-Tarts are cheap. Ramen noodles, let's go. You know what I mean? Like there's temptation to just eat a bunch of stuff to fill your stomach without having any substance. That's the whole point of a consumer life.
and like an alcoholic, which I feel for them more than like a drug addict because you can't drive to the store without passing 10 stores that sell alcohol.
Yeah.
And it's like, although alcohol has kind of always been cultural throughout history, but back then their water would get full of junk. Like their water wasn't drinkable that much, so they didn't know this stuff's killing us.
With the beer.
Like even back in the Bible times, like their water wasn't always good to drink, but the alcohol
Oh yeah, kill stuff.
Yeah, you could sit it on the shelf and drink it a month from then, but I don't really think they knew, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna get cirrhosis, or like I didn't know anything about that. But I don't know.
I do
I
know
don't know if they drank a lot of alcohol like that. I heard that somewhere.
there's wine from grapes, and I'm not sure about the ancient times, but there. I mean, it's Noah was a drunk. He was. That's
Oh, where's that one verse? There's a Bible verse. It is about him.
yeah.
It is.
Like his one
It
son
was
walks out of heaven, he's
hilarious.
naked, and he goes out and
Yeah.
tells the other kids, "Come look at this guy. It's hilarious." And they're just like, "Yo, he's in a bad spot. Why are we making fun of this?" And they walk in backwards.
Noah woke up hammered.
Yeah, he did. He was a drunk. He drank of the vine. So there's moderation in a sense. I mean, I honestly cut out alcohol in my life. I drink more coffee. I might drink on New Year's Eve, maybe, but I'd rather be sharp, especially because I'm practicing
If
martial
you're a
arts for a long
certain,
time.
if you're a certain kind of person, but for me, it's like I can't. If I'm at a restaurant eating a steak and I'm like, well, I'm gonna have a beer with my meal,
Yeah, it's all right.
I'll be passed out, drunk. Like by the end of the day, like I have no, you know what I mean, self control with that kind of thing. I overdid it, but you get my point.
Yeah,
Like I'll have a second and a third and
we'll keep going. There. So how do we fight that, right? Because the flesh is stronger than us.
no, like half the time I don't want to. You know what I
But
mean? And
that's it.
that's just me being honest.
It's what's it's in the so this is where you come up with your worldviews and your thought process. You think, or in martial arts, this is why I think martial arts is just like every man should do this. You think before you go into battle. You train before you go into battle. Alcohol in excess is bad for me, and I'm projecting here.
I don't care.
For me it's sweets. Like so that's why I'm just gonna go on a meat and non carb diet. Hopefully after January 1st, I'm gonna make an exception for New Year's Eve. And that's it.
I want to do that too because I used to do that.
So but you know yourself, right? I know. So for me, pornography was a huge thing, and I hated myself. And I'm like, why can't I control this? And every man knows why they can't, obviously. So what I did is I took the computer, and if you watch any of the videos I have, and I put it in the most public place in the house, like where it is. My reading room's there. My bedroom's there. My youngest daughter's bedroom's there. The bathroom is here, so they have to travel here. Downstairs is right there, and over there is my other daughter's bedroom. It's literally in the cross section of like 6 places. So that's removing the temptation that you think you're safe. So for the alcohol one, it's like, don't buy any. Yeah, good luck with that, right?
Yeah, because if you're real like I'm real impulsive, and it's almost like I don't know how to. It's almost like that's how my brain is now, or whatever. Like it's almost physically how my brain like psychologically is. I don't know how to describe it. I've watched a lot of stuff on psychology, and you can condition your brain to where you're very prone to do that, and it's very hard to like people with head injuries and head trauma. A lot of the time are real impulsive, and it's like you're not 100% in control. I'm not doing a cop out. I'm just saying like I feel like my brain's preconditioned to be super impulsive, and it's if you're impulsive, it's hard to be like focused and like I'm not gonna do that because you're impulsive. You get the idea in your head and like you already know it's a closed deal, stuff like that. But
So this is where you know yourself,
it's
right?
not that it's not a cop out. I'm saying what do you do then?
You have to remove the temptation. The most successful people in this on this planet, they don't have stronger wills than you or me. They just don't put themselves in that situation. So for sweets, for myself, one, don't buy them. Well, that fails a lot because my mom makes cookies and just gives them to me, and I'm like, come on. And then I eat them all. So that's impulsive. The second thing is put barriers in between you and your end game. So put your wallet in a safe, or if you buy alcohol, I don't know, put it in a hidden place down the road. So you literally have to get up and go get it. At least put some kind of barrier in between you and that objective. So you have time to think, do I really want to do this? And you at least have more time to fight that fight on the way there. And then maybe you can have better resistance for it. That's not foolproof. But that's
yeah. You gotta exercise some
because
self
you have
control
to
in the
have
end,
some sort of
but
self control. But
you
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 can
can
fight
make it easier for
you can
yourself.
fight the battle on your terms. So when it comes to pornography, yeah, man, crap. That's the way that men and women see the image of the others is so wicked. We see the image as if like a judgmental force of nature and
Man,
beauty itself instantly.
I used to watch a lot of porn, and it's like it got disgusting. I'm like, why does he hate her so much? Oh my god! and then
Okay.
and then and then like and then like you go outside and you look at people different, and you're like, oh, my brain's worked right
Yeah,
now. And so I
that'll
kind of
change you.
do the same thing. I'm like, I don't want to watch that stuff.
So
It's like warping. Never in the history of man has that stuff been around, and it's not normal. Like it's weird thought.
no, it also
But
oh,
it's like my brain was warped, and I was looking at people outside, and I'm like, dude,
take a minute, take a
I
walk.
gotta not look at that shit. And plus, it's just starting to gross me out, man. Like I'm not the same person. I guess I'm viewing women differently,
Yeah,
and when I look at that stuff, I'm like, oh, dude, man,
yeah, they're
I don't want that.
it's the sacredness of life right there, and we turn it into a consumable act. So turning life, and that's the thing about lust, and that's the thing also about being compelled to do something. Well, the whole point of like lust is it's eros. It's the Greek word for the romantic pull. It's not supposed to stop there. It's supposed to continue. So you have pleasure, and then you have pain and reconciliation, and then out of that comes life. That's where we have children. So you and your wife get together. You know each other. There comes pain with the childbirth, and in reconciliation, you continue that relationship, and then life comes out of that as well. And that's how things go. And this is also in the image of God, where you have reality itself, and the abstract pulling reality out of it, and out of that thing comes relationship, communication, life is in the middle.
Do you think it's like super important to have a child and a family? Like a lot of people I hear talking say that's almost necessary for content, or to be content in life. And then so you would have the more like environmentalist type of people say you're basically overpopulating the planet.
That's a lie. But keep
And
going.
I'm just saying, and then like as far as pollution, like you could be throwing your trash all over the place, but if you don't have a kid, you've not polluted the earth like a million times over. And like there's people that say these things, and they have very good logic. But what do
Yeah.
you think about
Well,
that?
that's pragmatic logic. Sure. How about you be the first one to just end your life, and that way there'll be less pollution on the earth? Yeah, dude, who does that? Nobody does that. They're great. This is virtue signaling. It's the finger that points. The finger that points says you are worse than me. You don't have kids, but there's only a matter of time till the finger comes back to you, and eventually you get destroyed for one reason or another. Sometimes you have no idea even why. That's why it's a bad philosophy. It's why leftist radicalism just is self-destructive in its very nature. So having children, well, does it have to? Do you have to have a child to be fully fulfilled? No, it depends on the person. Is it healthy to do? Yes, I think it is, because there's once you have a child, something that can't even lift its own head and has the potential to be a human being, and it will die unless you take care of it, and that's heavy. You literally like the first 2 days I didn't sleep after I had my first. Same with my second. You're like I didn't know I could go this long. Well, maybe with massive drug dosage earlier in life, you can understand. You can go a couple days without sleep, but like for legit, you know what I mean.
More than a couple.
For legit reasons, like I'm staying awake literally to care for my wife and child, and this seems like a good thing, and you actually have a lot more energy than you think you did, without anything else coming into your body, just naturally. Yeah, this seems right. We have to help, and it's pain to take care of a child, and it will take away from your own life. You have to give up yourself
It
so the life
it might not be
continue.
fun, but when you realize it took me till I grew up, basically mid late 20s, to realize there's a difference between fun and happiness.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why. Like I just never put the two and two together.
Yeah, it's
You know what I
the
mean?
thrill
It's
of
like,
adventure, and just doing whatever you want whenever you want, and actually having like some kind of joyous underpinning. And then you think about your life later when you're like 60, 70. Who's going to be there as you fade away? This is why honoring your father and
no
mother
one.
is
And
so, yeah.
I was talking to this dude at work, and he's like, sick and tired of dealing with his wife, and then the kids are yapping at him, and he's like, I see a lot of people like this. They're married, and they're like, man, the woman's driving me nuts. I can't hardly stand it. And then they'll look at me and be like, man, I'll do anything to be in your position,
No,
just
that's
to be alone
terrible.
and be able to kick it and do what you want. And I look at them and I'm like, yeah, but you got a family, so why don't we both just be happy? Like, I should be happy that I get to do whatever I want, and you should be happy that you have a family, because I'm gonna be 70 and it's gonna be Thanksgiving and I'm gonna be eating Chinese food. And then he's like, dude, I love Chinese food.
What? Yeah,
I
I love meals with no substance. Yeah,
don't. Because
he doesn't know
Chinese
what he's saying.
places are open on Thanksgiving. I mean, no, I think he does have a point. Like, he's like super, and a lot of times, like, women can be, not like anyone in a relationship. One of them can be a little unrealistic and ridiculous about what they expect of the other one, and it would drive them nuts. And it's like, I so I see these people and they're not happy. They're married and they're not happy, and then I'm like, well, what's the point then?
What's the
Like,
point?
I'm happier than they are.
What's the point of life?
I don't know, man. I don't know what the point
This is
is.
it's actually the atheist's biggest issue is why is there something rather than nothing? And I think it's not Heidegger, it might be Heidegger who said that, but that's the thing. Then that's again Mary on her knees saying you're gonna have a son, and she can say no, but she doesn't, and that's every woman's challenge. You can say no to having a kid. You're the gatekeeper. Now, there's obviously ways you can violate that, right? Rape and that kind of thing. That's not the way things should be. None of the way things should be. She is the gatekeeper of nature. She can say no to you, but she can also say yes. And women are more agreeable. They tend to say yes more than no. Usually, I'm not talking specifically about intercourse, but just in general.
Not with
You
me, man.
but you know, but
I'm
you know what I
joking.
mean. Like
I'm joking.
they can say no to life, and they can live their life. And this is a life of the young. But the thing is, we grow in age and in time. And if you think about a mature person, well, I mean, do you see like a 70, 80-year-old man going out to the bar, acting as if he's 20 and being accepted? And the people will look at that guy and be like, yo, shouldn't you be in bed or something? Other people that are at that age that are stronger will, it's
I've
almost like
seen
not
them.
accepted. Oh, of course
I've
you have.
seen, but all right. So here's one. What if they enjoy that and it don't bother them, and they're not like 70, like, man, I wish I wouldn't have drank. They're like, man, I had a lot of good times drinking, man. My life's been awesome. Like, would you say they're kidding themselves, or is it possible for people to? Because you're what you're getting at is there's like if there's something more that you should be doing other than just whatever you want.
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
is it possible for someone to be fully, not fully, is it possible for someone to be happy and content having just done whatever they wanted?
That depends on your definition of happy. I would say happy is very rare for anybody. Joy is a different thing altogether. You can be in a lot of pain and still be joyous. There's a lot of examples of this in our past. Um, if you, well, we were just talking about the Satanic Bible, right? If you live your life just for yourself, well, that's it. It stops with you. And again, you're identifying yourself with death. So you can ignore that, but it's still there. I lived my life for myself and I drank and it felt great. And crap, I'm going to die soon. Uh, I haven't really thought about this too much. I think I'll just drink a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like you're ignoring the problem. This is being willfully blind. This is also ignorance. How much you don't know about what your boss does, or about things that have been said, or that are evident in nature or in science that point to a life even beyond the one that we have. Even in our myths and stories, there's a lot of stuff that does. You can live your life purely for yourself. Yes, I don't think that leads to any kind of depth. If anything, you destroy your own image because you're not treating yourself like you're worthy of love.
Yeah, usually when you do that, live your life for yourself, you stop taking care of
Yeah.
yourself.
So this is where
I
you.
don't really see these people being content and happy. I'm just asking the question
No, it's a
for the
good
sake of
hypotheticals
argument.
are tough, and you usually need to. They're usually circumstantial. So psychiatrists get paid a lot of money because they really dive into this kind of stuff.
Take it on an individual basis. Like, because there's some people that shouldn't have kids because maybe they have mental illness and you
Maybe they
don't.
didn't have their correct parenting.
Yeah, yeah, but there like some people have like mental problems.
But then
Like if
you.
you're schizophrenic,
Oh, sure,
should you be
sure.
having 3 kids?
Maybe not.
Stuff, stuff like that.
But then
So
that's raises the question: should life continue or should it stop, even under those circumstances? That's tough, isn't it? Like, should you have kids or not, even if you are sick? Well, what happens if you don't? Life stops. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. I tend to think it's not personally. But this Christ says something like, um, "If you lose your life, you'll save it. And if you try to hold on to your life, you'll lose it." And that makes sense. If you live your life for yourself, you lose it. All depth is gone. But if you give away your life and try to be the role and grow in maturity and aim that way, the right way, the narrow path, you'll turn into a very influential person and have joy. You might suffer a lot, but par for the course. That's what happens when you're on par with truth. You tend to suffer.
yeah, and it's like the things you're talking about, most people aren't doing. And so if it was easy, everyone would be.
Oh man,
Yeah, so it's difficult. You got to grind and do
this is
stuff
this
you
is
don't want to do.
Rabbi Zacharias said, it's not that the Christian life has been tried and found wanting. It's rather it's been found difficult and left untried. Putting your hands into the arms of somebody else who you can, when you think about stories, it freezes time basically. You read about God personifying himself, and it had to happen at a specific point in time. Otherwise, we so abstract, like who cares? This is virtue itself. What do you think about Jesus?
Like me personally,
Yeah, that's the whole
I don't
point.
really have a lot of thoughts
You should read,
about it. Like
read,
a lot of what you're saying, I really agree with, and a lot of it I don't have opinions on
Okay,
whatsoever. I haven't really disagreed with anything you said. It pretty solid, but yeah, I don't have an opinion. I don't think about it all the time.
you should
I
read
don't
about him.
think of him as like an actual person. I think of him as like an icon. Like this is how he did this, and maybe you should like you know what I mean. Like bearing your cross. I don't think of a legitimate actual person doing that. I think of it like maybe you should maybe you should be responsible for your actions. I see it like that. So I don't really have an opinion on that, and like while reading the Bible, I didn't get too far. I just it's amazing to me that I decided to pick it up because I grew up in a religious
That's a good point.
environment, and I always my whole life I'm like, this is so stupid, this is ridiculous, and then for me to pick it back up and read it and get valuable information from it surprises me.
It's almost like there's
It's
something in there.
yeah,
That's a value.
yeah, it does. I didn't get so far though because I'm not disciplined well, and I try to read. I've got a bunch of books, and when I read it, a book that would take someone a couple days, it takes me actually like a couple months because that's how I read. So I don't get very far, but I extracted a lot of stuff from it. I would say I'm not really applying it, but well, yeah, I get the seed planted. Basically, I opened the thing and started reading it. I'm like, it's not actually ridiculous the way I was taught to view it. It's
Yeah,
is a little ridiculous.
and that's willful blindness if you go by what other people say instead of looking at it yourself. And so, critiquing a lot of the modern church, um, I would want you to follow Christ because I want you to read what he says and apply it, and you will have a better life if you do. I guarantee it. I've yet to meet someone who hasn't. But getting your butt in a pew is not the point of my life or anybody else's. Now, the point of the reason I bring this up is a lot of people just go to church as if that's an insurance plan. I do this once a week, therefore I deserve to go to heaven. No, if you do that and go home and beat your wife 6 days out of the week, that's not how this works.
What if she deserves it?
Okay, well that's different. Oh, dude,
No.
you know what I mean. Okay, there's applying yourself. It's all about authenticity, and when you start taking away that self-education aspect of it,
My
it loses its
my
value.
issue with church is like when the pastor talks, I feel like I put more thought into it than him.
It depends where you go.
He'll say stuff, and I'm like barely scratching the surface of this, man. Like you're being pretty simplistic
And
about what you're saying.
they have
Why?
a template they follow, and one of the things that they're taught to do is preach, sorry, beyond an eighth grade level, depending upon what church you go to. I desire more than that. It's tougher for me to find mentors because I want somebody that knows more than me and expresses competence that I can touch and have a conversation with. I met quite a few of these type of people, and this is why conversation this way right here is a lot better at encouraging someone to read, like I would say, read the book of John, because there's more that Christ says about himself in there than
Like
the
the
book.
next one I choose to read be the good
Read
one.
just the book of John. It's fairly short, and the things he says about himself, specifically in relationship to God the Father, it's pretty substantial. And the way that he tackles all questions, especially at that point in time once you really get into it, is so unique and interesting. I would say it can only be divine. That's something. So what is divinity? Divinity is in things that are holy or sacred. They're worthy of protection. They're worthy of honoring, but they're also something that are almost more valuable than you. And that's the whole point of following Christ. And if you take the abstraction of everything that's good and personify it, and he shows you the way that narrative and truth touch, and this is what we're meant to be, and you aim that, and he gives you an earthly example to aim for. That's the whole point. You believe in Christ because he personified this whole stuff for you,
And it helps
that's
if
what
a
you
lot
aim
of
for.
people do because in society, if you don't have something you can all agree on, it just starts getting a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you can't agree on stuff, it just goes out of control.
Well, it's the
Like we can't agree that there's a male and a female.
yeah, biology
It's
kind of
like
says that.
I don't even know what to think about that. I don't think it's as big a topic as it's just weird topics, so they put it on TV all the time. I don't think there's that many people that are like, I wonder.
What's the loudest voice? And the loudest voice tends to sell.
Some moron.
The loudest voice and death, those two things sell. And we have a media company that used to be cable, and they're trying to desperately to hold on for as much attention as humanly possible. Now the internet's out there, so it's hard for them to just grab attention. So they throw as many obscure things up there as possible. Um, so anyway, yes, and I did it. One of the first talk I ever did was the whole point about. This is why I'd say read the Bible more. You are passionate about what you expose yourself to. So if you choose to, even if it's 5 minutes a day, you're still doing it. It's still something. And that's a place to start. And same with exercise, right? We'll just do 5 push-ups. What's worse, doing 0?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
well, I had built a gym upstairs, and it's still there. But the thing I did, it's a mess. There's stuff.
Okay, never mind.
But the thing I did 15 minutes of cardio 7 days a week every time I woke up, and I had before work, and I had more energy when I got to work, which is the opposite of what you'd think. But then anyway, so when I'd be in a conversation with someone, I'd be talking about exercise and this is awesome.
Yeah.
But when if you're like smoking bud every day and you're in a conversation with someone, you're gonna be like, dude, this type's awesome. So yeah, like what you're saying.
You're passionate about
Whatever
what you
you're
expose
doing,
yourself
yeah.
to, and you can choose this, and you can think about what you want to expose yourself to outside of the scenario. It's easier to do that than when you're in it, right? It's easier to train when you're not in war than when you're in it. You're not going to do push-ups when bullets are flying at you. It's usually not how that works. You could try, I guess. That's the same thing as saying a prayer on your deathbed and God will accept me. Well, your whole life hasn't really led you this way, and it doesn't seem like you were even trying to go that way.
Just getting a little desperate and like.
Yeah,
desperate.
It doesn't. You have to. I mean, there's a point where you can turn and then be on your way there and maybe cry. And this is all circumstantial. And your relationship with God is always personal. That's why you're reading intentionally for yourself in the Bible and with Christ has to be intentional. You have to do it. I can't do it. I can't do push-ups and your arms get bigger. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff I read that say do this.
I wish I'd be like, dude, could you do
No.
these exercises and
That's too lazy. And you know, even
leg day. Can you do leg day? I hate that shit.
so even if that were the case, it would still devalue it. It wouldn't be worth
Oh
as
yeah.
much as it is, because anybody can do that. Yeah, put me full of steroids. Anybody can do that. But steroids have tumors and a whole bunch of other stuff that come along with them. So
You think? Is that
oh, they
something you
do.
read?
That's they have heart issues and yeah, steroids they lower your life. Your as far as I know, they lower your life expectation by a couple of years if you continue doing. Um, I looked into it a little bit because when I got bronchitis, like consecutively twice a year, every year for like when I was 25 to like probably 37. And then I found out I had asthma for my entire life, and I didn't know it. And I was doing all this martial arts and stuff. Yeah, I had
Well,
it that much, and so the doctor would give me antibiotics and steroids to make sure I could actually walk and stuff, and antibiotics to kill the stuff, so I could still go to work. And then steroids tend to lead to tumors, and if you continue on with them, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask if you took. When you tell someone,
Oh yeah,
when you tell someone you took steroids, the thing, oh, they don't understand that they're like there's a lot of steroids
okay,
that
yeah.
the doctor will give you to strengthen yourself and stuff. You're not like shooting your leg.
I'm glad
I
cleared that up.
But you did try it. You took some steroids.
Well, no, the because he said he's like we don't want you to take steroids your entire life because that's what it was.
He knew that's
prednisone. I think it is. It's a steroid. It's a mild steroid. It's not one that's going to get you jacked, but you do feel energetic after you take it. So it's meant to do just that, make your body increase your metabolism, so that you can fight off this stuff and almost like pretend like you're not sick. Almost
like a real strong pre-workout. I got addicted to pre-workouts when I was working out. And then I stopped working out, and I took them every morning instead of coffee. That's my personality. I worked out so hard and didn't rest enough that I got a pinched nerve now. It's the whole way down the side of my skull, and it runs down here. It's some
wow, your right arm.
kind of
That's
nerve.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm left-handed, thank God.
Oh, okay.
But because I wouldn't stop, and I would go too hard. And it was like, because of my addictive personality, I was like, I'm lifting weights constant. I'm going to keep going. And then the pre-workouts came, and I was like, there's drugs involved with weightlifting? Yes. That's awesome. And then, I stopped doing it, and I still had a closet full of pre-workout. And I loved them.
I do kettlebells 3 times a week after my karate workout. Just as far as I'm concerned, that's the best type of weightlifting you can do because it increases. There's no muscle isolation; it makes your body work itself. But I did want to comment on impulsiveness because there's something about impulsiveness that's really good, and I teach this when I teach lady self-defense. It's breaking the freeze. So if you're ever in a fight or you get sucker punched, if you've ever had that happen before, you're like, yeah, why'd they hit me? I'm such a nice person, and they hit you again. What did I do? I don't understand. And then you get hit again. That's I forget the term of it, but it's any kind of traumatic instance. You don't know what to do. Your brain says does not compute. People that are impulsive react faster than those that aren't. So you can deal with those scenarios and just because your brain shortcuts to something I know is right
towards something else.
Or you're just used to react. You're used to pursuing a feeling. Okay, he's beating up that lady. I should stop this, and you just rush in right away instead of like, and you just stand there and she's dead. You'll react faster. So there is a good thing to impulsiveness. It shortcuts that. The ways you can build up your ability to go against the breeze is by doing stuff right away. Your alarm goes off, don't hit the snooze button, get up.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you do stuff right away, and that helps your impulsivity. Unfortunately, if you're wired that way, and this is you can also make this half step argument toward like homosexuality and stuff. If you're wired a certain way, you have to know yourself, and if you need to control yourself, and that's when it comes to like if I'm addicted to heroin naturally, probably don't want to have it in the house. that just kind of fuels it. If I'm addicted to alcohol, same thing. I'm gonna try my best not to. Now heroin, you can't just go buy down at the street.
Yeah, that's the problem with alcohol.
Alcohol, you can.
Because I would go to AA. That's a whole nother story. I just went to gather information about impulsiveness, and they had this whole other agenda. But that's a whole nother topic. But I'd hear these alcoholics talk, and I felt so sorry for them because if you're addicted to crack, you're not going to pass 10 crack stores on the way to work. These people got it's almost like they got no chance. It feels like sometimes to me. It's like,
Well, sometimes you need someone else to help you, and that's where the other person can come in and have a roommate
or a wife.
or a wife.
She wouldn't put up with the drinking.
Well, she'll.
Unless she does.
The idea is you make each other better versions of yourself, and she will point out. She points out things. Well, we already went over this before, but I'll point out things to her like, not getting too personal. Like, we're having family time. Could you put the phone down? She's here.
Girls in their phone.
She's here. She's not here. This is supposed to be time we interact with together. She's getting better at it, and I'm getting better at sleeping more. This is just a weird thing to say. Like
I don't sleep much either. I don't. My mind races too much. And always since I was a little kid, it was been really hard to
look
sleep.
at this. Hey, you ever hear of a game called Risk of Rain?
No.
That's a video game. 3, 4, 5. So I wrote 6 handwritten pages on the religious philosophy of a video game. What's wrong with me? I gotta type it out. I'm gonna make a presentation. Probably get like 20,000 views. I mean, that'd be cool, maybe. But I'm still gonna do it.
I don't get many views. It's like the video game thing. The biggest YouTube videos out there are like someone plays a video game and talks.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I don't understand it.
So there's a formula to this.
Are you helping people solve the game?
Sometimes people just want to watch and not do anything. And this is our culture of amusement. Now, I try to mix philosophy and truth in there when I do my games. And I play with my kids. So there's a game called Catacomb Kids, which it's probably my favorite game right now, and it's extremely hard. It's the hardest game I ever played, so I love it. Same with Risk of Rain. It's very tough, but I like playing because it's hard. It tests you. There's a point where you can find a vendor. You can literally cut off your limbs and put robot limbs on top of it. I don't do that. And everyone, when they watch my channel, like, oh, come on. I'm like, dude, I'm not dismembering myself willfully. If I happen to arrive here without it, because you can fight the Reaper and a bunch of other guys, they'll cut your arms and legs off. If I happen to arrive here without a limb, I'll get a robot one because that makes sense. But I'm not going to willfully cut off my limbs. That's just not me. I would never do this, ever. So I try to be that kind of character in everything I do. This game called Luca, Born of a Dream, which I think deals with like abuse and suicide. And it took the same. It's a very neat game. I didn't know it was going to go down that dark route. Wow. But I tried to treat it the same way.
Great game, guys.
What would
not depressing at all.
It's just the last file I did got corrupted, so I couldn't upload it. And I'm like, I'm just gonna stop playing it because you can loop the game and find out more of the story. But while I do that, and I pull to, I don't done the teach in 8th grade level. I don't do that. I try to go as high as humanly possible in the circumstance I'm in. Because why not?
8th graders. Look, when I was in 8th grade, I felt like I was being treated as a child. Maybe I was a child, but you know what I mean by that.
Yeah. Well, you're in public school.
I was like, I went to a Christian school.
Oh, okay. What school did you go to?
Christian school, York.
All right.
That's where I went. But it's still, I'm like, it's almost like they're insulting me.
Well,
it's like, dude, come on, man. I know more than that.
Well, they're not allowed to. I don't know much about Christian School of York, but I do know the high rate teacher-to-student ratio is almost impossible to harness the skill levels of every single one of your students. It's the same thing with the big church.
Not everyone's the same.
Yeah,
has the same intelligence.
Yeah, you have 5,000 Congregationalists. Good luck managing all of their gifts. It's not going to happen. You're not going to make an influence. Jesus had 12, right? And he was supposed to be the Son of God. I mean, you have 2 or 3 people that are learning from you. That might be good. This is why the parent-child relationship is so good, and they learn so much from you. And the apprentice relationship too, right? You'll learn so much in depth. And now, these days, people that are doctors would not even pass the entrance exam to stuff that was like 200 years ago or 100 years ago, because you'd have to know like 4 languages. You'd have to have multiple years of apprenticeship before you got your education. That's not par for the course now. They just want money. It's not legitimate, building you up kind of deal. It's just you want this expensive piece of paper, which is peer-reviewed education, so you can have an extra 0 at the end of your paycheck.
Man, they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Man, I found out a lot about the income and hourly pay in the medical field.
Yeah, go work for Pfizer. You'll make a lot of money.
I'm like, oh,
but then think about what you're doing.
No, I don't want to.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to deal. I don't deal with people very well. Like
Yeah.
not in my personal life, but in professionally, I couldn't be in retail or nothing.
It depends what your aim is. But yeah, I can understand
I
that.
work with machines. There's like no one around me, and that's the thing too. I say some dumb shit to my supervisors and stuff, and I tell them, "Look, I'm a blue collar guy. I don't know how to express myself in a more polite way. Like, what do you? I'm not a politician like you guys. You know what I mean?" I told them they didn't like that either. So at first I was like, I kind of had that fuck them mentality, but now I look at it totally different. I'm like, just calm down, Aaron. If they don't know what you're talking about, that maybe they're not dumb, maybe you're smart. And
There you
I
go.
and that's the way
And you
I
have something to offer them, right?
yeah. Yeah, and if they don't know about the job, I just thought of this now. If they don't know about the job, how about when something happens, I teach them if they're gonna listen. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this actually does this,
You
and
want me
this
to
is
show you? I can show you right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
kind of thing.
stuff like that. I don't do that.
Like, come into my world. I will show you legitimately why this can or cannot happen. Like, they probably have no idea, and they obviously, and as our culture is, they probably won't even ask you. Like, show me why, because they're not interested in learning. They're just usually interested in results, so they can go on to their next task, which is appointed to them, or back to watching YouTube videos, whatever they do during
And
their work day.
no, I think I tend to point fingers when I'm at work. I do, and they're like I said before, they're dealing with who knows what. I don't know what they're dealing with. Maybe they're talking to customers. The customer's mad.
You know,
They could lose this contract. I'm not in charge of losing a contract.
oh,
It's not as big a deal. I can't hurt the place as much as them.
okay, yes, that's a good way to look at it. Well, I don't know if that's a good way to look at it, but that's a realistic way to look at it.
Well, if they're bad at their job, they could run the company right through the ground. Not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you might just make a little
So
here
their
or here, but
decisions and stuff are so much more important and probably stressful than mine.
influential. Yeah. Well, this is the political moment when you once you start rising, yeah, you're gonna have to say yes to people you don't want to say yes to, or no to people you don't want to say no to. That's the political aspect of it, because you have to relate to both sides. This is why. So Abraham Lincoln, right? He wrote down there was a interesting evolution of him and his relationship with the slaves. He eventually became anti-slave owner, but while he was running, he was not complete abolitionist, because there were people that were way more anti-slave than him. They didn't make it. The reason why Abraham Lincoln did it is because he's willing to talk to the other side and willing to say, "I slavery is secondary. I want my country to be united. That's the first thing." And people say, "Oh, see, he was racist." Well, no, he was a politician. He had to talk to both sides. That's the point. Eventually, yes, he did, because he believed in it, and he eventually emancipated the slaves. But that's the political aspect. You're going to have a lot of things you are absolute about, but once you get up there, you'd be like, "Oh, this is a lot more complicated than I thought it
Yeah,
was."
yeah, yeah.
If I just am strong about my opinion, I'm going to get nobody on my side, and nothing's going to get done. You have to talk to people. And Trump versus Biden, he pretty much said that.
That's the problem with the country now. No one's talking to each other. And I had a long conversation with someone that was like far left, and it's typically not far, but I'm not. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong thing, but I'm definitely more libertarian than anything.
Sure.
And but anyway, I was having this conversation with him, and it's typically the kind where you start yelling at each other and not
No one's getting anywhere.
like as if you're both experts.
Yeah.
And it was like a very productive conversation because I tried to tell him the way you guys see people like me and our ideas, it's not like this. You're not understanding. It's because of this. You know what I mean? Like it's not. And then he'd be like, we're not all like batshit crazy because I think of like the trans thing and stuff. Like he don't care about that.
Yeah.
He's actually got like some good points. Like there's a lot of plastic in the ocean.
Sure.
I'm like, I agree. We should actually do something about that. Like it is a little insane. Like we got to clean that up, and that goes totally against my beliefs because you'd have to tax people and do this and that. And so we had this conversation, and it was like that was the day that I realized my beliefs have too many like rigid arbitrations almost that I refuse to go across, and it's
Hmm.
not a little ridiculous. I gotta listen to that his point of view, and he had a lot of good points. And I associated a lot of his ideas with other ideas,
Yeah.
like it was a package deal. It was not. It was, he agreed with me on like more than disagreed. So it's like until we had that conversation, we would just assume these weird extremes, like he would assume I want children to die from poverty because I don't want taxes collected, like something bad.
What are you talking?
I don't, I
Yeah.
don't know what he would assume about my beliefs. I'm just making that up
Yeah.
because I don't like the tax thing, and I would assume that he's out of his mind. You know what I mean? And accusing people of being racist, where it's like I don't know where you're getting at, and accusing, this and that and the other thing. He's not like that. So neither of us were the thing that you would typically
No,
think of the
you're arguing
opposing.
with an image instead of the person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Image is amazingly strong. It's
Yeah, you
great.
summed
It's
that up
crazy.
pretty good. I babble on and don't and like stutter over
No,
my speech, but yeah,
you're
that's
fine.
exactly what I was trying to say. Like, you know, he didn't believe that they should have shut down the stores during the virus, but he's totally pro mask and vaccination and this and that. And he's like, I told him, I'm like, I didn't change anything. I just got thrown out of stores left and right. And he's like, kind of mad. And I always said it kind of belligerently, like, dude, you can't make, like, I'll put a mask on when I'm dead. Like I just say it a bad way. I'm like, you put a mask on, man. And then like he would hear that and get mad,
Yeah.
and rightfully so, because I'm being insensitive.
Well,
He,
sort of.
he literally had a family member that died, and I didn't know that because I've never met someone that knew anyone that died, and I haven't either. So I'm like assumed that that didn't happen, and it happened. And I said, me saying that a little
Yeah.
bit gonna throw. He's gonna get mad a little bit, and so I understood what he's saying, and he understood what I was saying. That was the end of the conversation. We didn't agree, but we agreed on a lot more than we assumed.
Yeah. I had a.
And I can't just say I'm right. I don't know.
Depends how far you go. So Bertrand, I write stuff down when I have multiple trains of thought to make sure I touch on them all. So Bertrand Russell once said the further you are from the base of truth, something like that, the hotter you get. So we take well we can
Yeah, I don't like talking about that
who are
that
you to tell
topic.
men are men and women are women? What do you mean? Who are you? Then you mean instead of going into the truth of it, you immediately play on the emotional part of it because you have no reason to back up an articulation to voice your opinion. You've not done this before. Or you're parroting something somebody else said that sounds right to you. Therefore, it's absolutely true.
That's like
And
most
that's
people.
terrible. And that's most people that are on their phones all the time or on Facebook who read little memes and say, okay, that sounds fun. I guess that's the way we're going. It's the pandemic of the unvaccinated, right? That's a big one right now. No, sorry, that's not what the evidence shows, but that's one way of looking at it. And I once argued with a guy who was Muslim, who he talked to me as if I was Fox News personified. And I'm like, dude, I don't watch Fox News. I have no idea what you're talking about. Half the stuff you're bringing up, I just don't know what you're talking about. You're gonna have to explain what you're arguing against.
Yeah,
And
because
it took a while because he's like, I watch CNN and Fox News. I know. I look at both sides. I'm like, those aren't two. I'm not either of those, dude. It's okay.
they're like products, and they got audiences, target audience. Anyway, go on.
So I was gonna give you a homework assignment because we're at 2 hours and I think my voice is kind of running its
That's
course.
where
I
I
need some water.
generally stop is like 2 hours, and it's not on purpose. It's like that's generally what it feels like.
That's my voice runs its course after that time.
But like, what is the tell about the thing at the coffee shop? What do you have a
Oh,
name for it?
well,
Heart and Soul?
Heart and Mind Coffee
Heart and
Talks.
Mind?
It's a group on Facebook, and we meet locally and we talk about cultural things, until it got too big, and that it used to be about anything, but now because I think we had like 11 people at our biggest gathering. There's I think 130 people in the group, but people come when they can. I mean,
Oh,
not,
so it's a Facebook group, so you can communicate like that. And
yeah, if
that's
you want
how.
to.
All right.
I don't stream it on there. We meet in person because things are way more valuable in
But
person.
but you can say like on the group, like it's gonna be here at this
Oh
time.
yeah, that's how I
That's what I
coordinate it.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah, we coordinate it there. So we talk about things that are going on and what to do about it or what to think about it because actions happen as a result of thoughts or ideas. So we look at these things that are going on. We try to reach a natural conclusion. Now, the idea is that people are off limits ad hominem attacks, right? We don't welcome bearded people. You're just saying that because you're a bearded person, right? That doesn't work, or you're white, or whatever. That doesn't. But the idea itself is welcome to be critiqued. Anything from theism to deism, and so if you're not educated on your own belief system, it will be challenged.
So it
Seriously.
almost sounds like an impossibility.
Well, you'll be
How is it
challenged.
your belief system?
Well, your worldview. Everybody has one. So
All right, yeah.
I believe in God. So you can say the Bible's a fake. I'm like, well, let me give you reasons why I think it's not. And that's the idea right there. Find a
What do you
worldview.
mean by fake? A lot
Yeah,
of people don't have
definitions.
definitions to their words, and it's not like they don't care. It's like when you're talking to people, it was just they're people, like I said earlier. But it's like they don't think about if they don't define the word, you could be arguing about something you
Yeah,
both agree on.
you're not hitting the same thing. So definitions are important. That's the point of language. We want to understand the same thing, and this is also when you worship together. You worship the same thing. And you can say worship is a kind of a version of copying something. We want to go to the same place. We're doing the same thing at the same time. I think this is why stretching as a group at a workplace is a good thing because you could start out doing it, but eventually people start to cracking jokes, and it becomes like a nice meeting time before you go off. It can be a morale booster or something that beats you into the ground. Either way, you're all bound by that one thing at the same time. Everybody can stretch. Usually at a job like that, unless they're handicapped, in which case they probably shouldn't be there. So we talk about these things because and the reason why this started, and I actually started a house church before this, is because they start shutting down churches, and I'm like, they should never shut down churches ever. This is a problem. I'm going to start meeting with people anyway, in person, and have a house church, and I started inviting non-Christians to it, and just to talk, and not everybody that comes is Christian, but usually the people that pursue conversation tend to be believers in something, as opposed to not believers.
Well, they at least want to hear what you got. Like I'd like hearing what you have to say. I'm consider myself a Christian or anything.
Yeah.
But that's another word to find needs to find. But anyway.
Oh, so the last thing the homework assignment I'm going to give you is when you deal with try to I don't know, and you can do it or not, whatever. But I know it affected
nothing else to do.
It affected me. Is when you deal with every single person at your job, tell yourself they're made in the image of God, and I'm going to treat them like that, and see what happens. Because that's how we're taught to deal with people. Love them as you love yourself. I'm important. I'm going to treat them like they deserve my respect, even if I hate them. That's tough.
That might be your. Well, generally that's your problem. If you hate them, that's
usually
something bad about you, not
because
them.
you can't forgive, or it's something so petty and you just can't rise above it and you can't deal with it. Because we can take a lot of pain, we can take a lot of pressure, we can take a lot of toil, we can take a lot of crap. But it's when we hold on to that as being our identity, again, identifying yourself with death.
Taking years off of
Yep.
your life.
You stop aging, but you don't. So you stop here, but you keep going on. So try to have issues with people at work. And work is your best venue for discourse with the people.
It's like my social life. I got friends and stuff, a lot of friends.
Sure.
But at this age, I like to be alone. Most of like when I was younger, I'd be crashing at people's couches. I don't do that now.
And you spend more time at work. Usually people do.
Yeah, I spend more time at work than I do home.
Yeah.
Other than the time I'm sleeping.
Yes. Well, yeah, you count waking hours.
So what's the Facebook group called?
is a Heart and Mind Coffee Talks. And the martial arts thing is kind of going. I want maybe 6 students I can fit in the bar in the back, and that's about it. If we get any bigger, we'll go into like a gym or something. I have no idea. Your cat's sleeping on my bag. That's adorable.
Yeah. All right, guys. Chad Johnson. Just
thanks, Aaron.
I don't know what my brain's drunk. But
Drunk off caffeine.
yeah, but yeah, you guys have a good one and peace.